Thank you for coming tonight. Sorry for the delay. We're having a little technological problem there with our laptop. This is the Senior Center Building Committee. I'd like to do a roll call to order. Greg Bendel.
Here.
Myself, George Hooper, is chair. Terry Marciello.
Here.
Diane Allen.
Here.
Thank you. And with us tonight also we have Dan Pilata, our OPM, Jeff Hull, our town manager, and Dietz, our designing company. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to read and take a good look? Any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve?
Well, Mr. Chair, should we take a vote for no action here? Should we pass over, considering
I
that
can
our
take a vote
colleagues
for
are
no
not here?
action just because of the amount of members that are here.
Yeah, we can probably pass over,
Okay, I'll pass over that.
if it's okay with you.
I have no issue with that.
No motion, just passing it over.
Just pass it over, we'll save for the next meeting. Next item is Dietz and Company to discuss programming of our new senior center. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Again, sorry for the no projector, so,
We'll take a different approach.
okay,
I've got to figure this out.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Just as for the members of the audience and anyone watching or listening, my name is Lee Morissette. I'm a principal architect.
Louder, please.
My name is Lee Morissette. I'm a principal architect at Dietz and Company Architects, and with me, I'll let you guys introduce yourself. Marco?
Marco Crescentini, Senior Project Architect with Dietz and Company.
Grant Rocco, Project Architect.
Excellent. And what we're going to do tonight is review a number of things with you. You have some hard copies in front of you, but in addition to that, the agenda, I'll just read to you since we don't have projection. Now that we've done introductions, we're going to move on to a brief summary and update of the spaces that we presented to you last time, and some suggestions on square footage recommendations in order to meet your target. And as part of that, we're looking to get a decision on the basic target square footage and any feedback you have on the summary of spaces. You have on the color-coded spreadsheet is the summary of spaces. We're going to talk, we'd like to hear feedback on your trip to Ludlow and tour through the senior centers. So some design feedback. We're going to present also, as you can see in your packet of information, an updated adjacency diagram for the representing the kind of a graphic version of the summary of spaces. And then we're also going to go through the review of the sites. Mark Aragoni couldn't be with us tonight because he's on a summer vacation, much like many of us are this time of year. And so we're going to present some of his findings on the various sites and give you an update on what we found at the 4 potential building sites. And then we'd like to go over the decision matrix or the criteria for making decisions on the site selection.
You gotta speak a little bit louder.
All right. In 2 directions.
I think those are for the TV.
All right.
It's a little hard with the air conditioner, so you gotta step it up.
I can do that. And then we're going to round out the end of the meeting, at least our portion of the meeting, with a discussion on schedule, if we have some time, because schedule's really slipped over the summer, and we want to make sure we catch up as much or reestablish new goals. So with that, I'll pass it over to Marco to start talking about the summary of spaces and the program of the building, as we call it.
Before you do that, Marco, I just want to say, in between meetings, we asked for feedback to the OPM, and the OPM distributed the feedback to the designer. We got feedback from the last meeting, and we tried to incorporate all the feedback we received so that we would try to encompass all of the comments. We might not have captured them all, some might not have been possible, but we think we did. We think we have a really good program here. And we hope you like what the team has come up with. We did review the program with the director in a couple of draft forms. So, but the final program that you're gonna see tonight is a version that I think will hone in on exactly where you want it to go. Your master plan had a 14,000 to 17,000 square foot facility without study. With study, we're pretty close to 17,000 and change, and Marco will go through that. So I think you're gonna be really happy with what we came up with.
All right. Thank you, Dan. So I'm going to be looking at the document here that has, some color-coded charts, or not charts, but categories. I want to make sure everybody's on the right page. We've got basically 4 columns. The first.
Just to be clear, it starts out at the top with space and then entry. Is that in that far?
That's
left
right.
column? Yes.
The title of the document is Existing and Proposed Expanded Summary of Spaces. The date is today's date, July 27th. Is that enough reference to make sure
Yes.
everybody's on the same page? Okay.
Right.
So we do have these 4 columns. The first one, space, is obviously the name of the space that we're talking about. The second column is the current Buzzell Senior Center site. I visited and met with Terry, and we walked through the space. I documented the spaces. So in the spaces that are included in the Senior Center, the existing one, you'll see that I've included the square footage figures in that column. Where that space was not there, we obviously didn't include it. And then we have the proposed net square footage of the new space. Or in some cases, if it was an existing space, if it was a space in the existing Buzzell Center, then we show what the new one was. So in some cases, like in this first item here, vestibule, there was a 55 square foot vestibule in the Buzzell Senior Center. And we're proposing that in the new Senior Center, it would be 120 square feet. And then we just included some comments. That's the 4th column there. For instance, for the vestibule, it would be an airlock with sliding automatic doors. We discussed having benches or a sitting area for 3 or 4 people to be able to look out and spot the bus coming or something like that. Excuse me, I just dropped my pen. So I'll just go down item by item. I'm going to go right down to the bottom first and say that the existing senior center is right around 4,663 square feet. That was usable space. The gross square foot, or the entire square footprint of the building would be more, but the usable spaces are included in the net square footage. You'll see that in the end, we're looking at a building of approximately 14,836 net square feet. That's all usable space. I'm going to go ahead and jump into this because everyone wants to know what that 17,803 gross square feet is. That's the net square feet, the usable space, plus a grossing factor that includes circulation. In our case, we included a circulation that we felt was appropriate. It's a 20% multiplier. And I included in that, so I used the Ludlow Senior Center, which seemed to be similar in concept to how we may approach this. We had a 20% multiplier there as well, which included some enlarged sitting areas. So it's not just the 8-foot wide corridor connecting all the spaces, but it's also 3 sitting areas that we will use as part of our circulation. That's why I included it in the circulation space. So when you take the net and the grossing factor, right now we're looking at a building of 17,800 gross square feet, entirely within our reach of being able to increase, decrease, however we want. It's all a give and take. So I'll go over the spaces. And you might say the existing building is this, the new one is that. Why is it? I'll just take questions as we go. And
Mark, just a question in terms of the net number here. So that would not include things like the space that may be required for the heating system or HVAC, all of those kind of ancillary things that most people who go to the building aren't interested in, but are kind of the infrastructure of the building.
so we did include spaces that would be on the ground floor. So if the space has a footprint, a presence on the first floor plan, then we included it. We did not include the equipment platform, which would be up above the existing spaces, because that's not finished space. You know, we're probably looking at a plywood floor, walking surface, you know, built on appropriate structure, and, you know, it's really, it's within the thermal envelope, but it doesn't really have finishes. It'll have a railing so you don't, you know, fall over, but, so net includes just the program space. The multiplying factor includes circulation and wall thicknesses. I didn't mention that the first time. So it's really, net is only from the face of the wall to the face of the wall. Gross is circulation plus, you know, when you have a building, there are lots of wall thicknesses. You know, I didn't include that in the net square footage, but it is included in the gross square footage.
When you get down to support spaces, you'll see that we have electrical room, mechanical room, server room
Yeah, that's right.
identified, and that is in the net space.
Yeah, that's, well, in the
So-
color copy, it's in the yellow. It's right at the end,
It's
right?
not program space, but it's net space,
Storage.
you know, storage, things like that. One of the things that we did on the site visit was look at, you know, different ways that they delivered their mechanicals. And one of the things that Dietz did extremely successful in Ludlow was to arrange the trusses such that there was a square down the center of the entire building, so that we could use those for equipment, as he calls them, equipment platforms. And it's like free space, because you have to build the trusses anyway, and the trusses are gonna cost the same whether you have a square in them or you have triangles in them. So by putting the squares in there, we get a whole level of floor to which mount air handling equipment and things of that nature without usable square feet being chewed up, which will cost, you know, $300-400 a square foot. All right?
I would also add that, that equipment platform, I don't call it a mezzanine because it's truly not a mezzanine, but it's sort of similar. It's up above. It's within the thermal envelope. So what that means, it means that the equipment isn't outside, you know, with a foot of snow on it, or doesn't have to be, you know, cleaned around it. The equipment lasts longer.
Yeah, it's
when
longevity.
That's right.
lasts a lot.
So there are several advantages. The other advantage is that if one particular room requires more air handling, you just put that piece of equipment right above that room or right near that room. You know, so it's not outside with long pipes or anything. You know, it's very efficient. And so we've successfully used that in 2 other senior centers, and we anticipate using that same system here.
Plus aesthetically, you have it inside the building, so it's not in the exterior, so you're
That's
not
right.
looking at that.
That's right. Now, there will be some equipment outside, but the majority is inside. So I'll just start. Well, I already went over the vestibule. If it's okay with the committee, I can just go item by item.
Yeah, I would go right down.
Okay, and then I'll go ahead and read the comments. That way everybody can see them and we can comment on them.
And, excuse me, I'd appreciate any input from the director, from Terry, too, if there's anything that you want to comment on.
Thank you, yep.
Yeah, because I'll make note of we'll make note of the comment, and then in the next round, we'll make that edit, and then you'll be able to compare the 2 documents, and, you know, we'll move forward from there. The 17,800 square feet is maybe a little bit more than, Dan, what we had talked about earlier today, but, you know, there's flexibility to, you know, when you move things around, especially the larger rooms. I found that it was easy enough to add another office here or there. That's 100 square feet or 80 square feet. But one of the things that I had to do to get within the 14,000 area target was really reduce the big rooms. And that's a shame, because we don't want to reduce important program space like the dining room, for instance. But that's where you get the big jumps from, you know, you get 2,000 or 3,000 square foot differences when you start reducing those. That has a big impact on the program, though. We tried to avoid that to the greatest extent possible.
Which we really haven't, from what we've been discussing, we have not touched that space
Right.
That's
from the
right.
original that
Right.
we were speaking of.
We would have if we had stuck with the 14,000, but Dan, when we spoke earlier today, and you said, no, you can bump it up to 17, because we're looking, you know, for guidance from you guys on that, and we can accommodate that, and, you know, through different mechanisms. Right, so the next space there, after vestibule, which I'm not gonna repeat, but the next, you know, these in the entry sequence, the reception desk area, obviously it needs to be right near the vestibule. Currently, I think because of the configuration, you have 195 square feet. You really only need about 150 square feet, and that's where you have your receptionist, the computerized check-in close to the door. You know, just like a reception desk. We'll make it a nice, inviting desk. We'll make it so you can't sneak around it, things like that. That'll include an entry lobby area so that when you come in, you know, there's a little bit of room to maneuver. 165 in the existing center, 150 now. You know, those are close enough. We can tweak what we need to. That would have like you know, as you come in, you could see perhaps a digital display, a welcome sign, information, bulletin boards. One of the next feature, I think, is something, next two really, is the cafe and the lounge. Those of you who went on the Ludlow field trip saw that right when you come in, you can see a little serving corner. That's what we call the cafe. The cafe is a refreshment service bar. You know, it'd be a counter and workspace. It'd have access to the kitchen. So when you come in and you see somebody you know, you can go get a cup of coffee or a Danish that might be served there. And then you can sit in the lounge, you know, and eat it or talk or watch people as they come in. These spaces want to be together because when you come in, you know, a little bit is technical, you know, checking in, if you have a card to scan or if somebody needs to document your visit. But then you want to be able to see other people. So that's where the lounge comes in. And that's seating and conversation area. You know, you'll have 6 or so, four top, meaning, you know, 2 by 2 or so foot square tables that seat 4 people. You'd have, you know, we could have bookcases. The lounge is located in the main central space of the building. And this is one of the building committee comments during the site visit. I take that back. It was one of the original building committee comments that you guys took, that you forwarded to us, Dan. But, you know, we wanted to avoid long interrupted corridors will be avoided. Program spaces will extend from this central area, you know, the central entry, reception, cafe, and lounge areas. So this is really going to collect people as they come in, and then they'll be directed to other areas of the building that you'll see in the adjacency diagram.
Marco, can I just interrupt for one
Of course.
second? In the sense of, you know, the reason we're quiet, and we're because we did have that luxury of going in and seeing Ludlow and seeing this, kind of like the space that you had imagined. And so, you know, that's why we're not like saying, oh, you know, questioning the space, is that we did have that with the committee members that were able to go, really got to see the space, so kind of can relate exactly what you're speaking to. So that's why, just for people to understand why I'm not asking questions at this point, is because we really did have hands-on, and that, Marco, you were right there through the whole thing saying, oh, we like this, so we kind of questioned this, so I appreciate that you put that into work here.
Yeah.
So thank you.
The other thing I want to add too is, if the proposed square footage is less than the existing square footage, that doesn't mean you're getting less. It means you're getting more efficient.
That's right.
All right, so Ludlow's existing senior center is larger than their new senior center, but has half the programming space. So when arranged properly, you have a better organization. So don't think you're getting less if you see that, you know, the entry lobby's 150 square feet and the existing one's 165. It'll be arranged differently, and it'll be arranged more efficiently.
That's correct.
Right. Could I just ask one question here too?
Sure.
So when the task committee met and everything, and we worked with Terry and everything, so I'm seeing these numbers change here. And so, for example, the entry lobby is fine, and then we go to cafe, and we had 450, right? And so now you're saying the reduction is 130.
So I'm
That's
seeing here.
130 plus 450. So if you look at the line below,
Yeah,
the lounge is what you think of as the cafe.
okay.
The 130 is the actual serving area.
That's right.
So
Oh,
it's really 580.
okay.
Do you want us to cut it back?
No,
Yeah, so-
I just didn't understand the number change, and that I wanted to have an
So-
explanation of that.
I'll caution just a little bit because these numbers, right up until we started printing, we were tweaking them. Dan gave me a call at like, I don't know, was it
Right.
2 o'clock, 3 o'clock? So we were tweaking the numbers as we go.
Okay.
We'll tweak them again after this meeting probably to accommodate your comments. So there will be small fluctuations. A little bit of it was to get us within the target gross square footage because in some cases, I had to take out a little, like, rather than take out all one space, I might take out a little bit out of 4 spaces to equal the same amount, so that each space might get a little smaller, still usable, but you won't eliminate an entire space or an entire function. That's,
So- I wanna just caution you on one thing.
yep,
I'm not expecting that we're gonna go back and keep tweaking this list. So I'm hoping that we can go through the list and everyone understand this is the basis for the list. And when it gets arranged into two-dimensional form, which is a plan form, Marco's right, we'll squish a little here, pull a little there. Some of the spaces will move up and down. He'll update his list, but the actual basis of design is really this column, the third column. And for us to move forward, we need to really nail that down. And I'm hoping that tonight we can nail down this column and kind of all agree, one way or another, that, we're pretty close. I mean, program and design go hand in hand, but the design will change the program as we metamorphose to 2-dimension and 3-dimension. Once structure gets involved, sometimes we have to add a column and shift the space a little even more. So I just want everybody to understand, I don't want you to think this is a super fluid document. It's kind of like I want to say it's like a big ball of jello that'll move a little bit, but it's going to be one big ball of jello. We're not going to really change it too much. I know that's a bad
Right,
analogy.
we wanna make sure that we're not missing anything,
Right.
everything's included, we have all our programs that
Programmatically, I
are.
want to make sure we nailed it.
Right.
And I want to make sure that we didn't miss anything. I don't think we did. I think you're going to be happy.
Go, you continue on. Mark.
okay. So, all right, so that made up the entry spaces. I'll move on to the administration spaces now. So the first space is the executive director office, and currently, Terry, you've got about 120 square feet. We're gonna increase that to about 170, which allows you to have your desk, some file storage, a table for 3 chairs, 4 chairs, so you can have meetings in your office, you can close your door. I think that'll make your office space way more functional, and I think deserving of that position, because you'll be able to work and meet there, and I think that's good. I'm going to run through these a little more quickly, but if anybody wants to stop and get into more detail, please stop me. The activity.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Just in terms of kind of a visual of what you're talking about. On page 4, this design here, I know it's a very kind of block-oriented setup, but does this kind of, from a visual perspective, depict what you're describing here in terms of these spaces?
It does, yes. So this is our adjacency diagram, and you kind of look at it as a loose building organizational chart, form, diagram. You can see where we've marked entry. You can see that there's a vestibule, a lobby, a reception, the lounge, the cafe. Now, because we've been tweaking our program, we still need to do some tweaks here. So right off the bat, I noticed that the cafe is shown large, but we're gonna use that loosely, and we're gonna, basically what this is the beginning of a plan layout. So the entry area is all concentrated together. And loosely, if you look at it, you can say, if I keep on moving forward, I'm going to, move towards the outdoor terrace. That was a concept that Terry had that I enjoyed, that I liked very much. That you could come into the building, greet other people, but then look forward and kind of like see out. And so one of the major features of this layout could be, that as you're moving towards the outdoor space, you're moving past some programmatic space. And then there'll also be a couple of corridors that, like, you know, arranged economically, arranged efficiently to then distribute the other rooms. So in this particular case, there's a, you know, the up and down wise from the entry to the terrace is one flow of spaces and experiences. But halfway through, you can see there's another flow that goes to the left and to the right. I can speak more about the adjacency diagram if you like, but it's basically a representation of moving through the spaces, how the spaces are organized close to each other. So, for instance, you know, the kitchen is close to the dining room. The kitchen is also close to the cafe. That goes back to that statement where the cafe wants to have a door off the kitchen so they can bring those pastries or that coffee from the kitchen to that space. So, you know, it's a loose plan, organized plan. And for us, it's a tool to be able to maneuver the spaces in a location that makes sense so that when the owner is using them, you get the right spaces next to each other. You get, you know, fitness storage next to the fitness room. You know, typically we locate the fitness room near the exercise equipment. So somebody could go and take a class in one, go next door, do something else. You know, it's an organizational tool.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So the activities director's office, you know, so admin is going to be a little bit of a conversation. I'm going to jump in right away because a little bit further down you'll see administrative open office. Let me jump down to that column. Do you guys see that? It's 600 square feet. Well, that's not somebody's office. That's an open office space that you can use and organize using, you know, office partitions to get more people into an administrative space. Typically, you either have a private office or you have a cubicle somewhere. And I don't mean cubicle as derogatory. You know, they can be very nice. They can even be large. So the strategy at the admin office is to give private offices to the people that need them, maybe for a function that requires privacy, and then open office space to be a little more efficient with the way that you have. So you might have an 8-foot by 8-foot cubicle, right? That's 64 square feet, and that's plenty big for the function that somebody might need, but it doesn't have privacy because you're just on the other side of an office partition. So the admin space, and I'll move back up to the top as we move down, you'll see though that the admin space, some of the functions have private offices, and some of them say will be located in the open office space. I have an example here of the open office space at Ludlow. If you want to see it, I can pass this around. Would that be helpful?
Sure, pass the room.
Go to the chair. So you'll see here that the room is quite large, but then inside the room with circulation, you have these office partitions. And some people might have a very small work area if that's, you know, if what they need, they check in. And Terry, I'll be working closely with you, we'll be working closely with you on just making sure that, you know, that all the spaces work out right in that administrative space. Earlier today, you and Dan had told me about, you made a couple of tweaks. You know, a couple of spaces, you know, this needs an office. This can't be in the open office space. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we need to do.
And I think that's, excuse me, sorry. That's where it comes in as to when seeing this, the space at Ludlow that you were referring to, seeing this open space, I now have a true understanding as to what you meant by that space. So we can, there would be that luxury to make it as many as cubicles or as least cubicles or just space to be used, so.
Now at Ludlow, that was done as part of their FF&E budget, meaning, you know, they decided later, they contacted an office furniture company, they did a design for them. They chose those tall partitions. You know, you could have gone lower. There are lots of options, lots of variables there.
The object was to try and have a flexible open space because programming's gonna change over the decades and you wanna have the ability to change. And when you build office spaces, like you are in this building, you change your stuff. So we wanna make everything we can in this building flexible, and the administrative office, no disrespect to the administrator, is one of those areas that can be really flexible because the staff numbers go up and down too. As the population that you're serving goes up and down, your staff's gonna go up and down. Some of the staff is only gonna be in the office for an hour, and they're gonna be on the floor for 7. So why build an office for that one person when they can, you know, they can share a cubicle or share modular furniture?
Absolutely right.
And that space would also include space for files and, you know, hopefully, and I guess everybody's talking about paperless environments. I'm not sure we'll ever see that in my lifetime, but
It does. We actually had a separate line item for admin storage / files, and you know we can do different things. I mean, you can have high density filing cabinets, you know, against the wall. We can do an alcove. We can design it around 4 foot deep or 4 foot wide, you know, filing cabinets. You know, that's still to be determined. But in this particular case, I included 2 6 foot wide closets. So if you have a closet, you open 6 foot wide doors. You know, you can have all your stuff right there, but if you don't need to look at it every day, it's just behind closed doors. So that's like 12 linear feet, 2 feet deep of filing cabinet storage if you want. But again, you know, we'll tweak that to make sure that it's exactly what's needed. So, the activities director, private office needs confidentiality. I made the private offices 80 square feet. That's, you know, it's 9 by 9 or 8 by 10 feet. You know, it's an adequate office. It's not palatial. It's not tiny. The third item down, senior clerk office, private office. It's 80 square feet. Needs to be adjacent to the reception desk. It'll probably be an open office because if they needed to hear what was going on in the reception area, and so I can't do that, or they can't do that if they're in a closed office. So it'll probably be in an alcove near the reception desk. The next item is volunteer coordinator, and I gave them 0 because they're gonna go to the open office space. I say here, if it needs confidentiality, we'll use the admin conference room. So we do have a conference room, so if anybody doesn't have a private office, there is a private space that they can go to and meet, set up a meeting. It's probably going to be, you know, relatively available. If it's not, you set up scheduling for it. But the private office would serve, you know, 4 or 5 other people if needed. And that way it's not, somebody doesn't have a private office that isn't, you know, fully used all the time. Next item on the list is the outreach social worker office. This is a private office, 80 square feet, because they need confidentiality really for every meeting.
and that would be the town nurse, for example, that goes over there on a periodic basis, is that?
We actually have a space for that.
That'd be a social
Yeah,
worker.
that comes under wellness.
That would be, say, for example, the case manager, Laura Pickett, for example.
So the next item is private office. We didn't give a blank private office. That was one of the, Terry, you had a private office there at your, I think it was the old nurses station. It didn't have a specific function, so I included it here because it was one of the existing spaces, but really that would go, the private office would go into the admin conference room. That would be the private office with rotating use. Next item is the administrative open office, 600 square feet, open office with office partitions, and you could have the activity. So that's a typo there. That should activities director should not be there because they got moved at 3 o'clock today. The volunteer coordinator, 6 to 10 occupants. It was similar to that graphic that I handed out. The admin conference room is larger than the normal private office because it wants to seat 4 to 6 people for admin meetings. It would have the confidentiality needed for programs like the Shine Mass Health or the benefits counseling or veteran services, legal services, meetings with state rep or legislator. Those are direct comments from the comments that I've received from the building committee. But all those functions can easily use that conference room. Everything all right, Dan?
Good.
It's pouring outside, is that what it is?
It's pouring.
I
If
hear
I
it.
see another drop of rain, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I already touched on the admin storage files, 2 6-foot wide closets, about 24 square feet. We'll have a staff kitchenette, really simple kitchenette, not overly complicated, but I'm 75 square feet. There'll be a sink, space for a microwave, a refrigerator, either full or under the counter, we could have an ice maker, coffee maker. It's a small kitchenette. And then we would have a staff restroom. All the restrooms you'll see as we move forward, there's the 2 big banks of restrooms. Then there are 3 companion restrooms, which are oversized restrooms. So not only do they meet barrier-free accessibility code, but there's a little extra room for a companion to assist. The staff room doesn't need the companion space, so that's just 50 square feet. All right, I'm going to move on to what's blue on mine. It's the program spaces. The first one is activities and recreation. Are you guys okay if I move forward? Any other
Yep, that's
questions
fine.
there? I think the admin might, that and this next section are probably the more difficult ones. It goes
Was there any
easier.
discussion on that first section, admin? I think, Terry, that would have been
No,
you.
no, that was fine, yep.
All right. So the first activity and recreation space is the arts and crafts room. You currently have 600 square feet. We're going to bump that up to 900 square feet. We'll have wet and dry function. They'll be separated. We'll have an operable partition, so that way if you need 2 separate rooms, or if you can do 450 feet there, 450 here for the 900, people can be making something in clay while somebody else is doing a quilting project. You just
Can I just ask a question as to what was the size of Ludlow's, those 2 rooms? I can't remember. Do you remember off?
Yes, off the top of my head, I might make a mistake, so I have another thing here that has the Ludlow spaces. Let me see if I can find it. I want to say that it was the same. Well, now I'm not finding my cheat sheet. Grant, do you have it there by chance? Oh, here it is. Ludlow was smaller. It was 742. So this was one of,
Yeah.
I want to say that this was one of the comments saying, let's make it a little bit bigger. So we bumped,
It was too thin.
yep,
Ludlow was too thin.
yep. So we bumped it up about 160 square feet.
Perfect.
So this would have like a movable partition that could either slide to create 2 spaces or be pulled back to create one larger space? Is
That's
that-
right. And when it's pulled back and closed, you just see, it's in an alcove. So you don't, it's not objectionable in any way. It's not an encumbrance on the room. And it usually, the kind that we specify will have good sound transmission ratios so that it's ratings, so that, you can't super hear, what's next door. It actually looks like a real wall.
Accordion?
These would probably be panels, 4-foot wide panels. Typically, these panels, you pull them out of the alcove, you spin them around. Sometimes they are, V-shaped, so that as you pull them out, you straighten them out, and they click into place, and you push it to the other end of the room. They've been used for a long time. I think there are lots of improvements on the way they don't hang up anymore or anything like that. There is some cost because you do need a steel beam up above to carry the load. You need columns at each end, but that's low cost for the flexibility that it'll provide.
And they're not soundproof.
No, but they,
So if George is doing Zumba in one of the rooms, you're gonna hear it in the next room.
It's
So-
just a petition to separate the.
Yeah, it's a petition to
occupants.
separate. You might hear bass sounds through it. You won't be able to determine the audible.
Right.
But, if someone's playing music, you'll hear the thumping.
if it's loud, but generally they've got good sound transmission ratios, and the partition is about 3 or 4 inches thick. It's got a cloth finish on both sides usually. All right. So let's see. Okay. The wet and dry function, operable partition. The wet area, for clay and painting and stuff like that, that'll have a sink and counter. We'd like to have northern light if possible. And that was I transferred that comment. Building committee requested larger than 800, so that was a response to one of the comments that we received. We'll have 2 6-foot wide closets again. Where I just counted 24 square feet, so that if you need to open up a closet in one of the rooms, you can with shelves you can store all the all the clay that's just been fired, or paintings or whatnot. So that's just storage space. Because the wet room has clay, typically we have a workshop that has the kiln that fires the clay. So The workshop usually is adjacent to the arts and crafts room off of the wet area, and that'll have a workbench and power tools. Terry, similar to what you have now. You had one area that, I think it was in the basement maybe, that had like a bandsaw and a drill press. Like, we can include those in the program space.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The only, the concern, the only question and concern that I have, I think we had mentioned it at Ludlow, when we had seen it, is the way the room was, with the kiln and the woodworking right next to it, that I just had a concern that how close they were. Is there a way, even if we, let's say 200 square feet, of maybe like a dividing panel or something, a half dividing
Yeah.
panel, or,
Yes.
Yeah, we can do that.
So the kiln was an afterthought in Ludlow, so it wasn't in the original.
so I just have
Wasn't in
concerns
the
with
original
ventilation
design.
and,
Yeah. The kiln wants to be on the exterior wall because there's a vent at the bottom and it connects right to the exterior wall. When you have it inside the building, like deeper in the building, it becomes more problematic because then you have to exhaust through you have to have a power fan that exhausts through the roof, things like that. But I
But
think
again, we're looking at space as we get into adjacencies in design.
that's when that will come in.
Yeah, those type of things will come in,
Okay.
you know, with locations of sinks, locations of closets, those type of things all start coming together
Okay,
as we get into that two-dimensional plane. To get to the two-dimensional plane with the adjacencies, we have to go through the exercise. And is 200 square feet enough for your workspace in a kiln? Yes.
okay.
All right, before we get too far, I think there was a question from the audience. Somebody was waving their arm, so.
Do you realize that kiln is going to generate at least 3,000 degrees temperature? It really needs to be enclosed by itself with safety features, with a vent to go outside. This is a high protein project that it just needs to be by itself.
Yeah, that's what we were kind of just discussing, that we would have a power venter and it would be off to.
Yeah, but I mean, it shouldn't be with other things because of the safety feature. I mean, that sucker gets hot, trust me.
So there are codes related to the kiln and that we'll have to meet. Ventilation is probably the most important.
Right.
Because that also helps keep the exterior temperature down. The kilns today are also a little bit more thermal than the
You
ones,
gonna buy me a new one?
so.
Listen, honey,
Hey,
that has to be at least 30 years old.
So the kilns today are different than the kilns of yesterday. So, we'll cross all those bridges with the electrical engineer, the mechanical engineer, because the ventilation has to be correct,
that's it.
the power has to be correct, and the spacing of the unit to anything combustible. So we'll get there. We hear you.
I recycle everything, so I don't need a new kiln.
Would you state your name and address too?
Carol Hulbert.
Sheldon Ave.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, some of the things that you have that are older that you want to recycle, we might not be able to move code-wise. So,
Okay, I'm just,
just so you know, you may be getting new, not because we want to spend money,
right.
but because the code requires us to.
Okay.
So, and
All right,
again,
that's fine.
if we can reuse it, I'm all for saving money.
If we can use it, it's going to Sheldon Avenue.
All right, sorry, Margot.
All right, one other question too. I think, this generates a lot of concern, only because of the way the wording is there. You're starting with workbench, power tools, kiln, adjacent to. And when we worked this up with the group, we pulled the kiln out completely and, had it as a standalone place, as she's speaking about, whether it's gonna be a room. But now I think Dan has answered our concerns about it because, you know, it's gonna depend on what the code compliance is of today's standards.
And it's not just code, although, you know, code is important, but it's also, the manufacturer has all sorts of things as well that they do on it. And it's a strut, I don't use Scott. Is that, so it's a well-known brand name. If we want to, we can certainly build a masonry alcove for it with the proper clearances. If we want to, we could, you know, put it in the corner of a room. It's whatever we want to do that meets the manufacturers and the state building code. The manufacturers, I guess, guidelines and the state building code.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. So we're at the library media room. And so these two rooms, the next one as well, computer room, and I said rename media room. A little bit of confusion there. And not confusion, complexity. So at the existing senior center, you have a computer room that's 165 square feet. One of the comments that we had at Westfield was that don't build it that big. We only needed like half the amount of, there was a comment about how the computer room was way oversized, and then they threw in other functions to try to complement the room size with the functions. So one of the things I thought here was, let's combine the computer room and make a media room maybe, or a media center, which could have the laptops on carts when they're not in use. You could have a TV there. You could have books with shelves. You could have DVD storage. You know, it could be like an auxiliary space to the recreation spaces, so that, you know, if you wanted to go to the library, that's a good place for the media center. If you want to go and see the DVD collection and sit down and watch a movie, that's a good spot. If you want to go on the laptop, it's a good spot. That's something that I thought might generate some conversation. I don't know if you want me to stop here or we can keep going, but that's something to consider. I didn't think that it, you know, to create a library and then have a smaller computer room, you know, nowadays those functions are kind of compatible.
Many of the schools now, you know, they're
Yeah.
media rooms where they have, as you described.
Yeah. So what I'd propose here is just to have, 120 square feet. You know, it's a decent sized room for, you know, these various functions. It'll have built-in bookshelves for books, or for, you know, for displaying things. It'll have a closet with some carts that maybe we could roll out when they're needed. That's a space that, Terry, maybe we can work together to figure out exactly how it's going to be used, but it might be different than the way it's used today at your center.
Thank you. Marco, just a quick question. I may be jumping ahead, so please stop me if I am, but speaking of the media computer rooms, am I to assume when you get down to the large function halls that that's going to have overhead projectors, drop-down networks, stuff like that?
Yeah, you'd
Okay.
be able to like watch movies with, 100, 200 people,
Right.
and that. You'd have a overhead mounted projector, that you can control from either a remote closet or from a, movable cart. You'd have a screen that would drop down, maybe automatic, maybe manual, but, be out of sight during the day. And if you want to watch a movie, you could open up to a larger audience.
Right, so in terms of the computer library room, there would be perhaps a screen in there, but if you were to host a movie night or something where everyone wanted to tune in, it would be in the function hall.
Yeah, because I think people in the media room would be reading, quiet activity. They might be looking at something on their laptop with headphones in. You probably would want to, keep the volume down there. You wouldn't be. I don't think you'd be projecting movies that might distract or other people that are in the room.
Thank you.
But you hit on something important too, Greg, and that is that senior centers get a lot of visitors and a lot of presentations, and we have to make sure that we technologically can just plug in, unlike tonight, but be able to have a presenter come in and either plug into a Cat 6 or whether HDMI or whatever the media is, microphones, everything should be all ready to go in the larger rooms, including as we get into design development, which is way down the road. But when we get into design development, I expect that we'll be meeting with Wilmington Cable TV to make sure that their equipment will work with what we're specifying, so they can flip on and watch an event, or broadcast an event, or say the town hall's busy and Board of Health needs to meet in the senior center, those type of things. We want to make sure that we're technologically ready to go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I look forward to that. I mean, especially if we could see a large group getting together, whether it was the elderly commission getting together for a meeting with residents attending or anything, any type of meeting.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, I'd be interested in especially seeing, you know, the built-in speakers so the person in the back of the room can hear the speaker, you know, not expecting them to, you know, speak up, but, you know, I look forward to that kind of stuff that we'll be able to do.
Yeah, we do too. Typically, we would work with an AV consultant on that because that's such a highly specialized field that I don't know that we would be able to do that. But when you get the right person in there, then we can make sure that they have everything they need to create a real, you know, first class, you know, AV experience. Audio, video, of course.
I'm gonna go to the audience. There is a question there, but before you speak, could you state your name and your address?
Yeah, my name is Deborah Russo, and I live at 902 Lord's Court. In one of the meetings that we had, it was pointed out that one of the things that our current senior center lacks is a dedicated space for reading. And so when I saw a library, I got a little excited, thinking maybe there's going to be a quiet space for actually reading. And we had talked at one point about having a fireplace, because all the new senior centers seem to have fireplaces. And now I'm seeing that it's mixed in with other kinds of media, and they're not really all compatible when it comes to just wanting to sit and read a good book. So I just wanted to point out that it would be nice if we could, you know, throw that into the mix, and when the design comes up, to have a nice corner away from computers, which can get loud, especially if people are gonna, you know, be sharing stuff back and forth or whatever.
Yeah, I can't deny that, you know, that's true. A dedicated library would certainly be nice. That's more program space. We tried to be efficient, and of course, part of efficiency is bundling uses, but, you know, there is a downside, and that's one of them. You know, I would move forward at, you know, your discretion. We could certainly, you know, add more square footage, or, you know, take away from something else.
And
or,
I'm sure there'll be areas that'll be kind of isolated, so you could go off into. Terry, would you like to comment?
But if Marco, if I recall, when we went to Ludlow, that there were pockets that were devised for people to sit on chairs, and we had talked about, you know, that was an ideal spot to be able to put up a bookshelf and a reading corner.
Yes.
So that, I think that piece that you had for the hallways that's coming up, that's actually kind of built into that quieter, because how you said how you locate certain things, as in exercise programs during you know, classroom areas, that was more of a quiet area in the building where people can really sit. So I think as we go on, there is a place like that, but it's not really in a room, but it's a quiet spot. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think you called it an oasis.
That was my made-up term. That doesn't appear here, but it does appear at the very end. Terry, you're absolutely right. In order to cut down on the length of the corridors, because our corridors are around 85 feet long, that's a good hike. Yeah. But if halfway there, you know, walking 10 seconds or so, you know, 40 feet or so, if you could see, you know, chairs, 4, 5, 6 chairs next to a table with a lamp, next to a bookcase. At Ludlow, we use that wood finishing material, but we could just as easily have done built-in bookcases, right, or things of that sort that you could sit down and go, oh, look at this book, you know, or you're waiting for a class to end, and so you can stand up and then go to your class, or, you know, you just want to sit down and see who walks by. Those are areas that I did consider to be, you know, quiet. You know, they could be quiet. I mean, it depends on how many people go by. It could be certainly sedentary, because you could sit down and do what you want to do, and nobody's going to push you off. And yeah, that's entirely possible. And we, you know, did include 3 of those spaces, maybe 1 at the center or 2 on the side, however many we need, in the overall circulation factor. So we are counting on those.
I think it's also something to take note of is some of these uses, we talked about this in a previous meeting where there's kind of more active side of the building and then a more quiet side of the building. And we're still holding on to that. You'll see that in the adjacency diagram. The spaces that are on the quiet side of the building can be combined in a variety of ways. So let's say the game room is more like board games, puzzles, that kind of thing. That might pair really well with a reading area with a fireplace kind of look and feel, comfy chairs, and space for book storage. So we're going to think creatively about ways to combine things to meet that kind of use that you guys are talking about. So something that's more library-like, reflective, would fit well on the quiet side of the building. And so we'll make sure we get that split right.
Of course.
Yep.
All right, so,
Ken Clarkin from Reno Road. The original library was, in your original package, was 50 square feet, which, in the computer room 300, I think the 50 square feet is more the size of bookshelves for the amount of puzzles and books and CDs and things like that. So I don't think it was ever a library as much as it was book storage. But to the last comment, if the game room were to be considered a reading area, the game room is now combined with billiards, so it's probably not as quiet as you think.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what the feedback is so essential for, because if billiards is a real interest, then it's going to get a lot of activity, and we'll split those. If it's not an interest at all, maybe it goes away and it's just a game room. So that's where we're getting a feed on.
The game room is not combined with billiards.
yeah, I was about to point that out.
Oh, it's not?
There's a game room and a billiards room.
So,
All right?
Combined with the rec room.
Recreation.
this is actually the next item here.
It does say puzzles and card games under billiards, but
Well, no,
if you go,
so no.
Billiard table, yeah.
yeah, if you go up three line items.
Yeah. So the recreation room, I included billiards table, ping pong table, things like that, because those are loud, of course. But that's the recreation room, and if we need to change the names, we can certainly change the names. But the game room is more quiet. That's, round tables, people can play bridge or cribbage or do puzzles or game. Like, those are typically a little quieter than, obviously quieter than ping pong or billiards.
Right, and they might be playing cards in between billiard games too.
That's true.
Most definitely.
Most definitely, right?
Right.
Whoever's not on the table's gonna be playing poker.
I'm gonna check on, I enjoy comments, and that's great. Am I going fast enough or slow, is that a good
You can
speed?
continue on.
Keep
Yeah,
going, keep
yeah,
going.
You're
Okay,
doing
I just wanna
fine.
make sure I'm hitting the right
Right,
spot
and
here.
I just want to remind everybody that we are just trying to make sure we touch upon and hit these spots. Sizes can be adjusted along the way, as Marco has said, we could push and pull, trying to squeeze things in to make sure that we are getting the appropriate space for the needs of the building. So,
All right.
I just don't want to get hung up on 50 square feet as opposed to
Right.
75, so.
Okay, so, are we okay with the way that we're tackling the game, the computer media center? Is that, can I proceed as I've sort of started out here? I just wanted to close out that conversation so there wasn't any
Yes.
questions. Good. All right, great. So the next is the game room, and that's 700 square feet, which is a good sized room. You'd have, more than enough room for 4 round tables, tables for puzzles, bookcases in the room, games, cards. That's a room that's really a multi-purpose room, but it's going to be centered around activities like games and such. It'll have a storage room. Again, I like the, deep closets get packed. You can't get to the back of them. And that's why I like shallow closets, because you can see everything once you open the door. So, I included 24 square feet, which doesn't seem like much, but, when you open a pair of doors, to a closet, you got lots of space there. So that was 700 square feet for the game room and 24 for the closet. The billiards room stayed on the list here, but you can see there's no area attached to it. So we're not having it, or right now, we don't have a dedicated billiards room. Instead, the recreation room, which is 900 square feet, which is larger than the 650 that you currently have, And I want to say that the recreation room that's the big room that you have that is also, like, oh gosh, now I can't think of what the recreation room, it's not where you had
Is it
the
the
arts and crafts. It
The
was,
center room?
that's right. So, we have 900 square feet, that's quite a large room. And, I think we can, card tables, games, puzzles, billiard, ping pong, I say folding, cause, maybe you can bring it off to the side. And storage. The building committee, that was a building committee question, and so it's, a request saying, can we make it larger? So that's how that got bumped up to 900 square feet, responding to a building committee comment.
Again, this is flexibility. You have a generation that wants billiard tables, you can put billiard tables in. You have a generation that wants something else, you have the ability to do it. It's gonna give you flexibility in the space.
Yeah, there's nothing in this space that says you can't use it for nothing else. Like, you'll have all the right receptacles, you'll have all the right lighting, I would not encourage, dedicated lighting for the billiards unless you really wanted to, but, otherwise, then when you move it, you get this weird light that you have to move, but, we can do whatever we like.
Would you anticipate in that particular space, again, having a divider similar to the one that you talked about in one of the other spaces here, that, or no?
We certainly could. I didn't. We would have two of these operable partitions. One, I take that back. If we wanted to have in the dining room an operable partition, that would create a much larger multi-purpose space. So we can discuss that. I didn't include that here right now. But yes, the answer is yes. We could include an operable partition. There's cost to it, but it does create flexibility, which is highly desirable here.
So when you get to the function room,
I
which is
should say operable.
3,700 square feet, how that gets divided, is a big question too. I mean, you can have two equal spaces, you can have one that's 2/3, one that's 1/3. And as you start doing that, your programming spaces become varied. So now you have one that's 900, one that's 1,300, a few that are 400, one that can be 900 or 800 that could be also 400. So the object is to try and have all different sizes for all different types of programming that we don't yet know exists. So I mean, yeah, we could add one. I don't think you're going to need one in the recreation room, but you could. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't. Just
maybe there's adequate space in the larger room. I just put that out there.
Well, I'll include it moving forward, just so that, we remember this conversation, if you want me to.
Okay.
And I have to correct myself, in the dining room, I did include operable partition. There was one at Ludlow that was roughly 1/3, 2/3 division, but that's up to us to decide. All right, so,
Terry, how did you feel, Terry, about the billiards room, not being a dedicated room or somewhere where there's a petition?
So when it comes to the billiards room, I think it's, I think right now, people enjoy billiards, even though right now we lack the space. But I think what Dan had said, I think that's a room that looks like we can put it in, and then say 5 years from now, 7 years from now, it's like, nope, there's something new. That room looks like it could be a changeable room. As for the divider, my only question is if a billiard at 900 square feet, sorry, I'm really bad at square feet, that making sure that if there is a divider, that billiard, the pool table can actually be used, and that no one's, because that's the main thing of us, the pool table, that's some issues that we have had in the past. So that would be my biggest concern, making sure the petition is set up that billiard could be used.
so I would guess that back wall there is around 30 feet, maybe a little bit more, maybe 32 or so. And 30 by 30, of course, is 900. So if you take that length, probably to the face of these, like, that's a pretty big room.
Yeah, that is a big
This room is probably around 900 square feet. So,
Again, I don't know square footage.
If it was square,
Yeah, not pie
On
shaped.
how aggressive people are with ping pong, you don't want your ping pong on the
Yes.
billiards table,
I'll bet they make a ping pong table that has the billiards underneath too.
That's true.
They do with-
Skittle ball.
Most of the ping pong tables anyway fold up
Yeah,
now.
that's true.
And whatever, whenever they're used, they're, whatever, okay.
But I have to say that 900 square feet, I do like a lot.
Okay. All right, so, and I gave the usual 24-foot of storage space there for the recreation, which, you know, we can review a little in more detail later on. The next item, greenhouse solarium, was originally, I think, might have been intended to be an indoor space, like you open a door from inside the building and it's the greenhouse. We could certainly do that. I'm proposing, because square footage is so tight, that maybe we do like a prefabricated greenhouse that's outside somewhere. I'm just gonna suggest that. We can certainly come back and do something different that's integrated with the building. You know, it's a little bit complicated to get it right. It might be costly. If you buy it off the shelf, you know it's gonna be right.
Greenhouses are energy hogs.
Yep.
In the winter. I mean, they're just,
I
you're just heating the atmosphere.
I think when we were at Ludlow and we were all together, you know, the group of us that was together speaking, that, you know, the greenhouse space versus a patio usable space was much more welcomed than the greenhouse. And so I really think the energy from that conversation was that having a true outdoor space to sit down in with a garden around it versus a greenhouse was really the wish.
Yeah, and I think you'll see that at the end of the program here, because I did include a large patio area.
You're right, Terry, because Ludlow had a greenhouse in the old one and doesn't in the new one.
So, are we okay with, you know, no square footage for the greenhouse? And then I'll jump right ahead to the boutique shop. I also didn't receive a warm welcome on having a, you know, a room for items for sale or donations, that kind of thing.
Except for one person.
Are we okay with these two items, or are we, shall we
Yes,
move
we're
on to
okay.
dining function then?
Yep.
All right. So the dining room, large space, 3,700 square feet. You know, it's tightly packing 8-person tables. I mean tightly in the sense that, and here, I have another little handout that the round circles are really what count, but those are 8-person tables. They're octagons, and, you know, they're arranged in such a way that you can maneuver all around. And that space is at Ludlow. Yeah, we're basically right at the area, a little tiny bit over than what was at Ludlow.
I think you're just talking about the red that you circled.
That's right. The
Right.
red would represent the tables.
The tables.
Underneath, there are a couple of different
More
options.
important than the tables is you can have 256 at a seating.
That's
for
right.
meals.
Exciting. I'm sorry, that excites me like the most.
So, and, you know, when we get to furniture, we can decide later what kind of furniture you're gonna get. There's two schools of thought. Some schools of thought are larger tables, other schools of thought are smaller tables, because of hearing. Hearing impaired can't process 8 people talking at once, so smaller tables. So there'll probably be a mix of tables in the end to try and accommodate everybody, but the bottom line is 256 people that can eat at a sitting,
That's
which is
wonderful.
great.
Right, absolutely.
So the occupancy count per the master plan was 250, so we stuck to that. We could have an operable partition. One of the comments, a building committee comment, was having a beverage counter area between the kitchen and the dining room, so it's like a separate, almost self-serve area. For discussion would be the raised platform for presentations, around 208 square feet, not included right now. But you'll recall that at Westfield, they had that ramp on the side, because you gotta be able to get up onto the ramp with a wheelchair. And then you might recall that they had that removable railing, and that people love to, you know, eat on top of it, but raised platforms raise all sorts of questions.
I agree. I do have a few concerns.
And that's why I did not
Taking
include
away
it.
workable space
Right.
and servable space and exercise space.
Are we okay not including a raised platform then? A stage? We can't use the
Already
word
fine with
stage, but
Yeah,
it's a,
yeah.
So-
Absolutely.
all right, good. That was a good, easy decision.
Thank you, because I had so much trouble with those railings.
Right.
Westfield.
And then,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't like it.
they were awful to get in and out.
the next item is the function hall storage, and I made that larger. That's not
Good.
my 24 foot. That's 200 square feet. And really what you want to be able to do is fold up the tables and push them inside if you're going to have a dance or something, or, have those little pallets with the, movable pallets for the chairs or
Yep.
things like that. So for right now,
Can I just ask, making
course.
sure that that 200 is totally separate then from the 3,750?
it is. It's a
Okay.
completely separate room. There'll
Okay.
be probably a pair of 3.0 doors, so 6 feet of opening, and then you go into a room that could, maybe be 10 feet by 20 feet or something like that.
Beautiful.
Just a quick question here. So on dining room, function hall and everything, is the flooring all the same, or do you kind of make an area where there's dancing or, different types of flooring, or
That's-
is it mostly just,
That's a conversation that we'll probably have later.
Later on?
At Ludlow, we had one single kind of flooring,
okay,
and that was a rubber flooring, which is durable and, doesn't scratch when you move tables around, and is multi-purpose, and, all right?
Good.
Should I move on to wellness? You guys ready?
Yep.
So, we've got a fitness room, that's 1,200 square feet. Ludlow, if you want for reference, because I think
Yeah.
when you walked into that room with the ballet bar and the mirrors, I heard you gasp, so that's a nice room.
It is a beautiful room.
Oh gosh, let me find it here in my other program, which is not exactly the same. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, so at Ludlow, we had a little bit more, 1,358. We're just right under there. And I think that was one of the things where I can't give them all of it and those other increments, so I had to cut back just a little bit. But I think it's certainly big enough to achieve what we need
Great
to,
room.
the goal that we need to achieve. All right, so I said here, group classes like aerobics, yoga, TRX, if we put a bar in, we could do that kind of. It usually there's a sports flooring, we'll have mirrors, a ballet bar, storage,
So,
cubbies.
Yeah, you ran right through that, because the people that didn't come to Ludlow, the exercise room has a gym floor. It's a maple floor that bounces so that they can do any kind of physical activity in there, individually or as groups. And it's easier on the knees and easier on the hips. No, it's a wood floor on top of, it's actually, it's probably similar to what you have in your high school, if you jump on your high school floor. Underneath the plywood is rubber grommets that give and take and allow the wood to shift, but allow the impact to not be the body, to have the floor absorb.
It's perceptible, but not, it doesn't overwhelm anybody.
You don't squish when you walk on it, but if you jump, you can feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's typical of many gymnasiums and things like that. It does have a maple floor with a finish on it. It's engineered, it's on an engineered substrate, but it's a good product for this use.
The other thing that the reason I really liked that room is the fact that it had a mirror and it also had a bar. And we've tried to do some dancing classes and things within the current center, and it's been very difficult in doing that because of no mirror or the bar. And so that's when I went in that room, it's like that's everything all in one. So it was a beautiful room.
All right, great. Shall I move on?
Yes.
All right. So fitness storage, 100 square feet, a little, it's not my 24 because you might have mats and things like that, but, not a huge storage space. 100 square feet, separate from the, separate from the 1,200. The fitness storage could have equipment, mats, chair storage. So the fitness room has these group activities like aerobics and such. The exercise equipment room is more cardio equipment, weight machines, things like that. So those are more individual. You jump on a treadmill or some kind of equipment. That space is 450 square feet. Not as big, but they do. Yeah, it's a space that we should have.
That'd be a separate room?
A separate room.
Fred Hogan, Middlesex Avenue.
Yeah, yeah, so I just,
So the equipment never moves, stationary. It'll be wired to the internet, so you have the little screens and all that stuff.
It's roughly about the half the size of this room.
Yeah, but all the machines will be like on one side, cubbies on the other side, you know.
yeah, you might have a mirror with some free weights, things of that sort. Again, the exact function we can tweak as we go. At Ludlow, they added the mirror after the fact because they realized that, you know, there were a couple of programmatic things that led to, yeah, let's put a mirror here. So, could have a mirror.
Last meeting there was, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna ask in terms of the space on the exercise room, will that be in an area where there's an exterior wall that would offer the opportunity to have windows if you're on the treadmill or whatever? Sometimes it's nice to be able to see what's going on outside, or.
Yes, it will. It'll have windows. Probably the fitness room will probably also have windows. Nearly all the major rooms are going to have windows.
Okay.
And you know, we'll work out the aesthetics of the exterior later on, but you know, we'll make sure that all the rooms that would benefit from natural daylight will have natural daylight. Not every room, you know, bathrooms may not have them, or you know, janitor's closet won't have it, but all the principal rooms will have nice windows.
Last meeting there was a question about locker room or changing room. Is that
Oh, you're
something that
right.
people are interested in?
So we have cubbies, so you can sit down on a bench, take your shoes off, or I don't know, change your shirt or something, and then you know, put your stuff in a cubby for either one of these two rooms. You know, whole locker room, you get into a whole different, like you don't want. I don't.
Different-
No, no.
I don't know that you're going to want to do like showers and more bathroom. Like it's more in depth.
But I was thinking just like a changing room for privacy if, you know, you need to.
You have companion toilets. I mean, I'm not trying to be the naysayer, but, you know, I've done eight of these, and we've never had a changing room for fitness.
Good to know.
People that come to the center for fitness generally come knowing, are dressed ready for fitness. You know, go home and shower, do whatever they do. It's pretty rare that they shower at the center like a boys' club or a YMCA.
Showers are a source of, I mean, you can imagine a liability. You know, you could easily fall. You know, you've got soap and wet floors, and
You know, I'd like to, I see it that it takes away from program space. And currently, right now, everybody is just so attuned to coming in and doing their exercise and being able to relax after that piece of it, I think would really take away from our program space and our activity space.
I do have a question in the back.
I'm Audrey Reed, 3 Deming Way. I just wanted to say this, that I came across this about a shower. We didn't want a shower. But then somebody told me that in their senior center there was a shower, and they didn't use it. It was there for an emergency situation if the lights went out in an area of town and people needed to come, you know, like if there's a hurricane and it becomes, the senior center becomes a, what? Tell me, somebody.
Warming,
Where emergency.
Emergency, yeah, the senior center sometimes becomes an emergency. Do you know what I'm trying to say, please? Okay, thank you.
We do have a shower included in a bathroom in the kitchen. So
Right.
there's-
That's what we saw over at Ludlow.
That's what I've heard, and I thought, well, that makes sense, that the senior center sometimes becomes an emergency place in case of something dire happening in the town.
Well, the center won't be a shelter. So it's not going to be designed as a shelter. I'm guessing your high school is your shelter. No?
No, I think it
We've
was
opened up the senior center.
Yes, we have opened up this.
As a warming center.
Well, cooling, warming, and
Yeah.
and
I
sometimes
mean, you'll
an
be able to do
emergency.
that here. But what you won't be able to do, if there's a hurricane coming, this building's not gonna be designed for the event. This building will be designed for post-event. So if power goes out in town and it looks like it's gonna be 3 or 4 days, it certainly can be, the facility certainly can run on generator, or if we go that route. And be a warming, what we call a warming center. But when it becomes a shelter, it's a totally different ballgame structurally. That's why I'd be willing to bet the high school is rated for a shelter.
Our middle school is.
The middle school,
Okay.
one of your schools is usually rated for a shelter.
So, yeah, it's a really good point, Dan, and, so your middle school is your emergency shelter in town? Okay, so this will not be an emergency shelter?
No, it will be what we call a warming center, or somewhere you can go charge your
Power
phones.
outages and things that we've had in other areas, we had
Heat
heat
waves.
waves, to use it for cooling, yeah, we have used the senior center for that.
So
And I'm
we'll-
sure the seniors will be more comfortable there, so that'll
Right.
be where we'll
Okay,
go.
so we'll make note that it'll be a cooling and warming center, but not but not a shelter.
For the amount of times we've actually had to
We're
put it
gonna,
into use.
we're gonna need standby generator.
Right.
And if the
also
site
the
has
fact-
gas, it'll be gas fed, and if the site doesn't have gas, it'll be diesel.
But also the fact that that has that kitchen, and had the wellness piece, that there was several reasons why the center was used.
It makes a lot of sense, and in full transparency, there's a really big difference between a place that you can go to if it's really hot to cool down, and something that's considered an emergency shelter. An emergency shelter is built kind of like a hospital or a police station. It's really robust, it's got lots of backup, it's a place that you can hunker down in a big storm or an emergency event. This building, we're not anticipating to build to that level of robustness, just because it's really, really expensive to be that durable. We want to meet your needs the best we can, and spend the money in the best place we can. So if the middle school is the emergency shelter for town, then it's already built for that purpose, and we can tailor the building in another way.
Just a question, you were talking about windows a few minutes ago, and I don't know whether the pros outweigh the cons or vice versa, but in some of the earlier discussions, there was talk about these ceiling window spaces. I don't know exactly how to describe them, but are those advantageous? Do they create issues in terms of maintenance? Is that something that you would consider as part of this?
You mean solar
Like-
tubes?
Satellite?
Yeah, I guess
Photovoltaic,
solar,
Passive
Uh,
solar, is that what you're talking?
essentially little openings in certain areas of the
Light wells.
roof. Yes, that allow
So that,
natural lighting.
I mean, we're nowhere near there, but
Okay.
we'll get there. When they do the massing of the building,
Talking about those tubes,
yeah,
outside light.
when they do.
Not a skylight.
Transom windows you're talking about, above a regular?
Listen,
No, like,
all of the fenestration is
okay, that's on another.
3 meetings away.
Okay, all right.
So, right now, we just wanna get the spaces
Sure.
so that we know what the volume's gonna be. Once we get the volume, we can study, where it goes on the site. That'll determine which way the sun goes,
I
which will determine.
withdraw my motion.
I'm gonna be trimmed.
Just one more comment. With regard to the fitness room and also the exercise room, having belonged to several clubs, I could count on my hand the number of times that the women that I were with actually went and used a shower. I mean, people go there, they do the class, close, go home. So, no, I don't believe that space, I totally agree with what Terry says. We need the space in other areas, and,
We'll put that one to bed.
yeah, put it to bed, right.
All right, so the next item is wellness clinic, exam room. We could have what's essentially like a nurse's office or, an exam room. We're talking about a room with a hand sink, a vanity, cabinet storage. Really, the equipment that you put in it would be up to you or up to whatever.
This is where your VNA, your visiting nurse would go.
Yeah, well, this is actually where our town nurse,
Your town nurse.
town nurse would go for our situation, and who comes to visit us a couple of times a week, several times a month, so this would be her space. to be able to be used.
And the podiatrist?
And the podiatrist, yeah.
Yep. So that's 200 square feet. That, you know, it's 10 by 20 feet. So that you know, you can fit an exam room, exam bed or a table. You can have a part of the room could be an office, you know, with a desk and chair for interviewing. Or I think we can do whatever we want to in that space. And then the slightly larger 40 square foot equipment storage. That was, we added that today at 3 o'clock. That was, you know, big enough to be able to wheel some wheelchairs in, or walkers, things, light storage.
I added this because you have it currently in a shed.
Right.
So you have a huge need of, someone needs a walker for a couple of weeks, or is getting a knee worked on. So we want to make sure we had the ability to continue that service. It doesn't take up a lot of space. Just didn't want to throw it back out in the shed.
So Dan, maybe I need to clarify, because when you said attach it to the outside of the building, I literally wrote attached to the outside of the building.
That's fine.
That's not what you were intending.
I just meant under roof.
All right, I'm gonna cross that off, because I thought that is not, that's kind of, but we can make a closet off of this space, and it can be big enough to, the varying types of storage. That would be more of a bulk storage, but maybe we have some shelves up
Walkers,
above,
chairs.
things like that.
If I could just put a
Be so
piece to
liberal
it for
with
you,
it.
Marco. You know how Westfield, when we saw Westfield, and
Oh, yeah, upstairs.
and upstairs where she had the walkers, the wheelchairs, shower chairs. Obviously not on that level of amount, but that's the type of the shed that was in our parking lot.
I see.
That's what's inside. That is the medical equipment.
So right
And
now
that's
it's
like a 10
40
by
square
10.
feet. That's not
10 by
huge,
12.
but
Yeah,
It'll-
it's 10 by
it'll-
12, it's 120 square feet.
We'll cross that bridge.
got it.
Just make a note that it's a part of the program.
All right.
What's that?
Big reduction
Where
of what we
the,
have now.
and a question here, where we have the wellness clinic and the exam room, what do you have? Do you have like an area outside where people sit and wait to go in to this room and have the service done? So the nurse is there and maybe whatever. Is that accounting for some outside space there for seating?
It does not. We can try to figure out a good place to put it so that we can have a couple chairs, like maybe in an alcove off the hallway, so that if the nurse opens the door, they can say, next, or look
Right,
to
right,
see
right.
who it is.
Same thing with the podiatrist. I mean, that room is going to be used either by a podiatrist or the nurse, but I would think the people that are coming in, and we get the newsletter when they're going to be there, so I noticed we noticed something similar to that in Ludlow. Yeah, they had a little room off of where the examining room was.
That's right. So at Ludlow, there was an office
Mm-hmm,
and then an exam room.
Correct.
Two separate spaces.
yeah.
We could make, out of the 200, we could do, 80 and 120 or something like that if we went two separate spaces. One room was more of an office space with a desk so that somebody can sit down in a chair and they can conduct an interview of some sort. The other one would be, have room for a table or a massage table or an exam table or something like that.
Again, we're talking about the size of the space.
Mm.
Each town does it a little different. You guys may decide that you want it 200 square foot, you might want 140, 60. You might want 200 feet and the admin space is in the open office. I mean, there's 100 different ways to slice the cat.
Right now, I can't remember what Westfield was. I'm so sorry. But I think when you and I were talking, Marco, after seeing Ludlow and then seeing Westfield, we kind of were drawn more towards the Westfield's layout. And I think that's why you didn't have that sitting space.
So I'll go check the Westfield layout.
think
I
that's
also
why.
can't
I think
recall what
Westfield
the-
was direct off the corridor.
I think that's why
That
it was
seems right.
kinda, so,
Just
I can't
go
remember.
back a second to the storage piece there, that 40 square feet. If you're doing, if that shed is 120 square feet, that 40
There's
is.
a correction in here, Jeff.
So
This one here is,
Michael got it right,
Yeah.
he just has the snow blower at 120, which really should be 40.
the 40 square feet.
You got it right, you got the
So
square
readily
footage right,
available.
you got them swapped.
Right.
So we have it in there, it's just swapped.
So should I make that 120 instead of 40?
That should be 120 and the snow blower should be 40.
You know, it's funny, is I thought that, and I thought, well, between like the snow
That is
blower
a
and bags
big-
of
That's a big
salt and
snow
stuff
blower.
like that,
That is a big
shovel.
snow blower.
Wait until you see the parking lot.
All right, so I'll also then go ahead, excuse me, I'm gonna change the 120.
That doesn't mean I didn't, when I was talking, I didn't reverse them either.
I didn't say that, Dan.
It's possible.
All right, so, okay, did that, I heard something about the medical equipment storage, that resolves that issue then?
Yeah.
All right, great.
We're
So
fine.
that's gonna be 120 then instead of the 40.
Which is what we currently have, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the next item is the kitchen. We're talking a full commercial kitchen. I'll tell you guys, I did go visit the Newburyport Senior Center a couple of weeks ago. And it was quite nice. There were a lot of things I liked about it, some things I think we could do better. They had 2 kitchens, that was odd.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We only have room for 1 kitchen for right now, unless we want to move stuff around. Right now, what I'm planning on is a 1,000 square foot kitchen with a prep area, a serving area. It'll have all the Ansel system, you know, fire protection stuff. I heard people say during the walkthrough that they like the walk-in refrigerators that we had at Westfield. We do not have those at Ludlow.
Right.
There's a dishwashing area, high-density storage units. We'll probably engage a commercial kitchen designer to assist, and we'll be able to work with them to get the kitchen of the commercial kitchen of your dreams. There might need to be conversations now about the commercial versus the more traditional kitchen. I just want to try to put that to bed because
It has to be a commercial kitchen with 256 seating.
Right.
I'm not saying one or the other. I'm saying both. I don't think we need both. I don't want both, but
Well-
I've heard people say that they like the residential kitchen.
But I,
Go ahead, Terry.
But I think you kind of covered it a little bit with your cafe when we first come in. The reason for that sit-down kitchen is for people to feel comfortable to have a cup of coffee in a small space or something light to eat. And your cafe of coming in and grabbing the coffee and sitting down has actually accomplished that space.
Perfect. I like that. All
Well,
right.
I also think though, at Newburyport, I thought that, that wasn't just a staff kitchen
No.
area there. That was also a teaching, if people took, classes, and, wanted to have, cooking classes going on in there where maybe they would have, so that smaller kitchen, was designed in that way. And then, of course, they had the little pass-through through the
saw that.
library there.
So-
They did not have a cafe, which I understand what, Terry really likes, and I totally agree with that. But I thought that was a unique thing that I have
It
not
is.
seen in any
It-
other facility that we visited.
So you know why I think that might be the case? Is because at Newburyport, it's a community senior center. And so you might end up getting younger people who, and I'm not saying seniors don't need cooking lessons, but I think that the added, life skills, like cooking, I think is part of a community center type program as well. So it could be that there's some differentiation there.
The commercial kitchen could be organized in a way that allows for, spectating, for classes also, yeah.
So the kitchen that we observed at Ludlow had a very large counter space, the largest counter space I ever saw, going from a large hall into a kitchen.
It's a really nice
But
kitchen.
one of the advantages to that is that could, especially with a room divider, that industrial kitchen could be used as someone being able to view what's happening inside that kitchen. So if there is a way to tweak that a little bit when it comes to that piece of being able to engage the kitchen with that, because that counter space was just
Right.
gigantic.
We did do a commercial kitchen in Falmouth that had a teaching component, although they haven't quite used it that way.
Mhm.
But it was designed to be able to teach alongside of the commercial kitchen. It had all the standard commercial equipment, and off to the side, it had some other little nuances to it so that they could do some classes.
It's almost a galley, like I would
Yeah.
say, you know, a horseshoe galley and everything, and just to, yeah.
So why don't we'll do the commercial kitchen, but we'll arrange the opening in such a way that it could double as a teaching kitchen with a prep area. And then I think you're gonna need to be able to see the range, so, we'll try to figure out the right way to set that up so it could be dual purpose. Or really a singular purpose in terms of being a commercial kitchen, but being able to double because maybe we can
But
create it.
1,000 square feet is pretty big.
Yeah, but I wouldn't wanna have two ranges, for instance, right?
We have a question in the back here.
Fred Hogan, Middlesex Avenue. Today in most of the restaurants, they have the open kitchen concept. So there's actually the prep area, and then they have so people can really see from the other side, where people can see their food being prepared. And that's pretty much like what I remember seeing in Newburyport when we went up there. So you could see that, even though it isn't set up for that. You could, if you had that an open area to the kitchen, and would facilitate any teaching if you wanted it.
That's almost like what Terry said when she said that they had a long counter. Behind that long counter was a giant coil door that when it was open, you had a view of the whole kitchen. So you could pull right up to that counter and see everything.
They have that in the Tuscan kitchen and a lot of other places.
Yeah, I think these are compatible
Right.
uses that we can integrate.
It's the size that I'm most concerned with, and I think 1,000 feet right now is enough.
I think it's adequate.
In the kitchen office, you're talking about whoever is in charge there has a little office where, they do their ordering and so on and so forth. You're allowing 50 square feet adjacent.
Now, I said adjacent to kitchen, it does say office, but, I thought they had a nice setup at Newburyport, because there was the back of the kitchen was available for deliveries.
Mhm.
And right when you walked in, there was a little alcove that clearly was, the head kitchen person
Right.
who could, see the deliveries going in, but it wasn't a private office. So that's why I put it at 50 feet, because maybe I can change the word office to alcove, but I think if that's something that you think you would benefit from, I thought it would be good to have.
So I think for the kitchen, we need to be able to prepare for the future. Right now, we do home delivered meals, and it's within our community at this time. We're very unique in doing that, preparing them through the schools. So, never know in the future, it's trying to prepare everything right on the same site. So, not to say that would happen right away, but I think we need to prepare for the future that could possibly happen. So that alcove or that person would need that space to be able to order the food and that type of thing. So I think that alcove would be a great, as long as there's a spot for just to set aside to making sure the orders that are coming in are correct, that kind of thing. So I think that's good.
I took particular note of that because the alcove also had a window that was right near, it wasn't a dock, not like a loading dock, but it was clearly like a truck would pull up, they'd be able to see the truck, they'd step outside, like it was very immediate. So I think we can do something just like that.
Thank you.
So that's the kitchen office. I'll write the word alcove in the description, or maybe I'll see if I can have a better word than office. And then, so the next item is a kitchen staff restroom, which would include a shower. So at Ludlow, I thought Jody had this idea of what happens if somebody needs a big cleanup of some sort. Well, instead of trying to figure it out or do something, there's just a shower in the kitchen area. You walk in a door, it's right there. You don't walk through the kitchen to get to the shower. But I think it's very opportune to have for maybe emergencies.
And it's off the beaten path, so
We don't want people
you have privacy to the impacted resident.
That's right, and you don't really want, it's not not everybody can take a shower there. Like I think it's really used for emergencies only.
And that speaks to Audrey's point.
Okay,
Keep going.
So are we, no questions about the shower or anything?
we're
No,
fine.
okay, all right, very good, very good. We're moving on. Kitchen storage, 120 square feet. Because we talked about walk-in refrigerators, I wasn't sure if, as we developed the kitchen layout, I wanted to preserve that 1,000 square feet and off to the side, be able to
Yeah.
have a little extra space. Because we can also use, if you saw in the kitchen, I'm pretty sure I used the word high-density storage units. So you guys have an idea, like they're those metal storage systems, but they're up on wheels.
Right.
So you can stack them all face to face, and if you need to get to one, you just roll one, you go in between, roll the next. So you would have some of that storage space, like that system I just described, would be in the 1,000 square feet. But if you wanted to have separate storage, like in a walk-in cooler, or walk-in freezer, that way really you have 1,200 square feet.
I love it.
10 by 12, that's a lot. Is it?
Yeah, and if we don't need it, we do something
Well,
else. But
if I can interject one more time,
We'll need it.
just like our situation with COVID, the food was brought in, and it was very, very important that we were able to be a source, to be able to give out food. That type of storage, you just never know. I'd rather have it, seeing that it's in there. I think it's a great thing to
So
have.
right now, I think we could consider, I did not specifically say, freezer, but yeah, it's any type really. And as we design the kitchen with our consultant, we'll work on that to make sure we hit the right spot. All right.
Good.
So the next category is meeting. We've got a large meeting room at 425 square feet. You can definitely fit 20 people in that. Multi-use space. So, classes, meetings, presentations. It'll have audio, video capability. Storage. Now, it would have some storage. I had 8 square feet of storage. That's the next item down. I'll go back up to the multi-purpose meeting room description, because one of the building committee comments was including sinks in all meeting rooms. So at first I thought that's a little odd, could be helpful. And when I included it because it was a building committee comment.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
I don't recall that, so, yeah.
I
I
don't
don't-
recall that.
I personally, thinking the large purpose room like that it wouldn't be needed.
Yeah, I thought so also, but because it was forwarded to me, I wanted to make sure I included it.
Yeah,
So-
I think that would take up space too.
Yeah, I think that could be,
Yeah,
Take
I
it
mean,
off.
they might have also meant meeting room as in large meeting rooms, not necessarily a small group meeting room. You can't have a sink in every room. I mean, it would just be
No.
cost prohibitive.
No, of course. All right, so that's the large meeting room. I'll skip over storage because we just talked about that, 8 square feet. Then we have a small meeting room. It's, 10 by 10 feet, it's 100 square feet. You could definitely fit, a table for 4 people. And then again,
We'll take off that.
Yeah.
yeah, strike that.
very good. So basically you have a large meeting room and a small meeting room. Typically, the small meeting room would not have AV and all the other, bells and whistles, but, if somebody wanted a quiet space and it wasn't being used, that could be a reading room, it could be a room for somebody to work in. It's got, both these rooms are multifunction. And I think it's good that there's a small one and then a larger
It's
one.
needed.
All right? And then the small room would also have a small closet to it. I said here the small ones might be for, COA meetings. Yeah, maybe this description probably needs to go more towards the large one. I apologize. The community presentations, mixed use, locate near front door, that was meant for the larger multi-purpose room.
And that space is a great space because we also have our Memory Cafe and there's so many different things that we do have that do need a closed space, so those size small rooms in the large room are perfect.
Yeah, and so, located near the front door, I think makes sense.
Sorry. Oh, it must be an alert.
I think it makes sense because you can kind of linger in the lobby lounge area and then go into the meeting if you want. It might be one of the more used spaces in the center.
Margot, I think we have a question in the back also.
Yes, excuse me, the large meeting room, is you've got like 20 people with classes, and we have more people than 20 for classes sometimes. So would you take the recreation room as part of that, or how would you be able to?
So, you know, a little bit of a difficult question because there are lots of answers. You've got other spaces that you can meet in, other spaces like classrooms that you can use for those larger functions. So again, it was, you know, having a series of rooms, you know, from ranging from small to large, not necessarily they're at the same size. So this is a room that could easily fit 20, maybe more people. But if you had a larger class, you would go to a different room.
We're designing for flexibility here,
Yeah.
too,
Right.
so.
And a lot of this is gonna be management, how the spaces are managed during the day, scheduled. And it'll take a year or two to get all the kinks out and get it perfect.
But, can
Yeah,
I-
so
Go ahead, Terry.
Gail, just to share with you that, you know, that the activities recreation section, program section, that really does cover a lot of, say, for example, the arts and crafts, the game room, that type of thing. So that's really can focus on the classes. This is additional from my understanding, Marco.
Yes.
This is additional meeting space, but there are classrooms, and there are rooms set aside for recreation and our arts and crafts and stuff.
Yeah, it's a room about half this size, you know, probably this half of the side, and you could arrange a horseshoe-shaped table, a round table, a big rectangular table. You could, you know, I think it's suitable for up to about 20 people
These small meeting rooms.
with different table configurations.
Yeah, I can't help but think of the, Mr. Chair, if I may, the rooms we have at the library, you know, the Banda room, and there are other smaller rooms that was just created. Those are, and I don't know if you're familiar, but those are the rooms that I'm envisioning, you know, that can be used for multi-purpose.
I agree, thank you.
Okay.
All right, rounding the bend here, I'm gonna move on to restrooms, is that okay? Any other, I'm sorry.
Proceed, please.
Proceed.
The storage.
So restrooms, we've got a couple different types of restrooms. The first one on the list here is the companion restroom. So the 210 is for 3 companion restrooms, of which each would be 70 square feet. A typical barrier-free bathroom is about 7 by 7 feet, so around 50 square feet, and that gives you all the things that you need for barrier-free use. The additional, so that's about 50 square feet. The additional 20, 25 square feet or so is an additional length in the room, so that if somebody's standing, wants to help somebody get dressed or undressed, they're not like trying to move around the toilet or the sink. It's a slightly larger, single-user, restroom that you know, could allow for the user and a companion. So the extra
And
space.
these are spread throughout the facility.
So we've got 3 of them.
Right.
If we had a facility that had a corridor, you'd have one at each end of or one in the middle of each corridor, located, in an appropriate place, one in the center. You know, we're gonna move those around to where they're most needed. I'm gonna go on and to the others because that way we can talk about all the bathrooms at the same time. The public unisex bathroom was on the original program. I didn't assign any area because we're not gonna have a regular toilet room except for the staff toilet room that was added to the admin space. So that one you'll see has 50 square feet, which is the, typical barrier-free bathroom, which is the large one, mind you. It's not like you walk in and it's the one that has the grab bars and all the clearances and such. And then we have the larger restrooms, which have airport-style restroom entrances, so you don't have to open a door, you don't have to touch anything, you kind of zigzag your way in. Sight lines don't let you see anything except, part of an opposite wall that, you won't see somebody's reflection or anything. And each one will have probably 5 fixtures and 3 sinks. We'll have to do a plumbing fixture count once we finalize the program area. And so, the plumbing code tells us how many fixtures we need. Lavatories, toilets, urinals, etc.
All touchless.
Pardon me?
All
Yes.
touchless.
Again, that's a little further down the road, but yeah, we would probably make touchless. The accessories there, the hand dryer, the waste receptacles. We'll talk about that later probably, but yeah, it'll have all that.
So, question here. So on the companion restrooms, that would not be an airport style. That would, you'd probably have a push button where the door would automatically open so that you could wheel someone in. correct?
That's a good point. I mean, that's a discussion that we'll have a little later on in terms of how all the doors on the facility operate. But yeah, we could put an automatic opener on that door. There definitely would be a door because that's essentially a single user bathroom,
Most of
restroom.
the time, I believe those just levered doors where your companion would open the door and then you would. It's a maintenance issue when you come with those doors, you know. The push buttons and
Really,
opening,
just
plus,
the motors don't last very long.
right.
That's why we've gone to sliding doors in the front
Exactly.
and not motorized open and closed like in the older days.
And the other ones, the larger ones are airport style, so, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
right.
that's
That's
gonna be
great.
very nice.
But none of the doors will have greater than, I think it's 5 pounds pressure.
Yeah, they'll all meet
So,
the.
so that if you are in a wheelchair and you come across a door, you can pull the lever and easily push the door or easily pull the door. There won't be any greater than 5 pounds,
Okay.
All right.
all right?
Very good.
Support spaces.
Yeah, so we have a custodian sink and storage room that's, about 8 by 8 feet, 64 feet. They'll have we'll go through details later on, but, there'll probably be a slop sink or janitor's sink, janitor's equipment, storage in there for typical space. Laundry room, again, 8 by 8 feet with washer, dryer, maybe near the kitchen, but not part of the kitchen space. That kind of made sense to me because you'll probably have things in the kitchen that you need to wash, but you don't want the laundry room in the kitchen. I heard that before, so near the kitchen, but separate room. General storage, we'll find a spot for that. It's 200 square feet. That's pretty ample. You only have 30 today. I think it's in the old former vestibule. I think is where I got that 30 from. So that's about an 8 foot by 10 foot room. 200.
20 by 10.
Excuse me. You're absolutely right. That's a typo. I would have said, I would have said 10 by 20. Equals 200, not 8 by 10.
You're scaring us.
I was gonna say that 200 is not a lot, but we'll stick with 200 for now.
I don't know, it's an interesting question, because it seems like stuff expands to fill the space available, but, how much is appropriate for storage?
Yeah, that's the perennial question. Because a lot of the other spaces have their own dedicated storage, and this is just general storage, we can see how it fits in the space. There are times when in arranging the rooms, you get some like irregular spaces, and you go, wow, that'd be a perfect storage room. So, we can try to take advantages of those moments. In the meanwhile, we can say we've got 200 square feet.
I agree with Jeff too. If we provided with 5 200 square foot rooms, we'd come back 3 years later and there'd be 5 full 200 square foot rooms.
Yeah.
All right? So if you provide one,
Terry's
there'll be
knowledge
only
knows
one
it's
full.
true.
I think general storage is a need.
Yeah.
It's definitely a need, but you do have storage spread throughout each of the
Yeah,
program rooms.
and I did that intentionally to avoid, having 5 200 square foot because, you never get to the back of those rooms.
But just
Typically, they start, they start nice and neat, but then the moment somebody starts parking stuff in the, the access aisle, stuff starts getting blocked in, and I see
But
that
just
all
like,
the time.
like you said just 2 minutes ago, that as in, maybe that 200, we find that not just one general space, but that can be,
We
if we
can-
could just use that 200 as a,
If we wanted to have in 2 different locations, 200 square foot, yeah, we could do that.
Okay.
So we're gonna settle for 200 though for now, and then adjust it as we go?
Okay.
All right. Mechanical room, 225. I derived that a little bit from the Ludlow mechanical room. Because a lot of the equipment is located elsewhere, it doesn't need to be very large. I'm gonna use that as a placeholder for now. The true.
No, it was next to,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was listening over here. I thought it was an interruption. But in the end, the size of the room will be determined by the equipment that goes in, which, we'll do moving forward. I think this is a good placeholder for now.
Yep.
All right, electrical room, 150 square feet, same thing. It depending on what we put in. This is not the IT closet, which is coming up. The server room is 60 square feet. That's the next item down. So mechanical room, electrical room, server room, like, you know, those might tweak a little bit. The server room is really a closet. You
Support
walk
space,
in and there's a panel on the back wall, you know, at least 3 feet clear in front. You know, you're probably pretty good with
The
that.
fact that it has a room and it's not in the office is a wonderful thing, so yes.
The server room will probably be close to the admin area if possible. That's where a lot of the cabling will go.
Good.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I wanted to talk about something Dan actually mentioned earlier, and that is the possibility of, I don't want to say it would be to the extent of what we did at the high school, but when we built the new high school, our friends at WCTV were allotted a space where they have it outside our main meeting area where the school committee meets. They have a beautiful setup in there, so anytime they want to broadcast a meeting, they can do it. Now, I'm not suggesting it's that space, but, you know, at some point, I think we should, you bring up a good point, consult with them about, you know, what would they need to broadcast the, you know, elderly commission meetings, or if there was another meeting in the evening that was held there. So I don't know if that,
Programs.
I don't know if, any programs, right, you know.
And would they need space to store equipment?
Right, so I wonder if we should, you know, reach out to them, maybe get a recommendation, you know, is it 100 square feet? Is it more? I mean, you know,
Well,
it could be less.
I think, I'll be happy to reach out to them and set up a preliminary meeting and work out the details. We usually bring them in when we have the layout and talk to them about what their needs are. Usually most of their heavy stuff is somewhere else. And they'll need rack space, and they'll need the ability to have certain connectors for microphones and things like that. But each town's a little different. You know, you guys might be not IP based, they might be, you know, radio frequency based, I don't know. So we'll meet with them, make sure we have the right infrastructure in place. And if we need space, we'll have the space.
Yeah. I'm not suggesting that everything that you do is gonna be broadcast, but I mean, you know, moving
No,
forward
but I
in the
do
future.
think all of the
I think
bigger,
it's a
I do
great
think all of
idea.
the bigger
it's
spaces
a
should
good
have
point.
that ability.
Fantastic idea.
Yeah, I think, you know, I can envision someday where a person, a senior, can't make it down on a particular day, whether it's a medical reason or just a scheduling conflict, and they want to turn on their TV and watch the yoga class live and maybe do it in their living room. I don't know. I'm just saying, I want to be able to have that ability
Yep.
going forward. And, you know, we could go on and on with the number of events that you could televise, but,
Programs, some televised.
yeah.
And we have a great relationship with WCTV, they're over an awful lot.
Right.
And this would just, in fact, they're trying to organize a program with us, so this would just enhance that team effort. We have a great collaboration,
So I
have them
think we
have
should
space.
earmark some space, I don't know what the number is, but, you know, and we should fill in that blank at a later date, once Dan has an opportunity to talk to them, what's appropriate? I mean, you can see the setup they have in this room, right? I mean,
Right.
and we have a lot of our meetings here, I don't know, you know, that's not a lot of square footage, I wish they probably wish they had some more. They give me the thumbs up.
So if it was like, it doesn't sound like a control room that's dedicated to a space. It sounds like a space that they use as like a remote office of some sort.
The one at the high school is pretty extensive.
It's
I
more than
would-
that,
I
it's
would
more
call
than
it
that, Marco.
So-
It's not only the infrastructure to be able to broadcast 2 ways, forward and backwards, but for the ability for them to control remote cameras and things like that, which is what they're doing over here. So I think we have to have that discussion with them. They may be in the future doing this remotely. They may be able to control the cameras from the high school
Right.
and have someone at the high school broadcasting the meeting. They might not need any space. They might just need the fiber optic cable and the data cable to be able to control their equipment. I don't know. I think we have to have that discussion with them. The technology changes so rapidly that we want, you know, when we're building these facilities, you know, we wire them. We don't buy the technology till the very end because we bought it at the very beginning. It's outdated by the time we finish building the thing. So, you know, I think we need to have that discussion with them because I'm sure if they're as good as their programming is, which is good, they know where they're going and they know what their future is. We just need to align and make sure we put the infrastructure in. I think you're right, Greg.
I love that idea.
So Dan, you'll confirm with us then?
Yeah, I mean, I'd leave the
Investigate and
space
confirm.
the way it is for now, but just be cognizant, you know, their space might be able to be somewhere else, not necessarily in each room. It might be one spot that they can control everything in the building. We have to have the discussion. Let's figure it out,
All right.
And we'll get it right.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Let's see here. So equipment platform access ladder, we'll have two of them, so that there are two exits from this service area that's up above. Each one just has a ship's ladder, so they're very small footprint. Ship's ladder is kind of like an inclined ladder. Just walk up it with handrails. That's how we did it at. A couple people went up at Ludlow.
Yeah, we all went up.
We all
Yeah,
went up.
we
We all went up.
We all went up.
And
So
it was
that-
pretty easy.
So that's
Yeah.
what that is.
Easy enough.
And
Diane navigated it.
then the last item, or the last item of the support spaces, we already touched on. That's the snow blower storage. That's 40 square feet.
Yeah.
But we're still saying that's attached to the outside because you want to open an exterior door.
Correct.
And have
And
like
have
a little storage
and we're gonna have
utility
to have
area.
a barrier to the building so that it meets fire code.
Yeah, because you're-
You're storing a petroleum product inside the structure. Right?
Yep. Yep, that'll be a fire rated enclosure.
So that is going to
3 hour.
be attached to the outside.
Well, more than just like a doghouse attached, it might be that you open a door.
Yeah.
We don't know yet. But
Attached was the wrong word I used. It should be just outside access. Same with the walkers and things. It should be outside access.
Doors directly to the exterior.
Well, wait a minute though. When you just mentioned the walkers and things, you want that to be outside also? I thought we put that like in a closet near the not the fitness room. Yeah, near the wellness office.
Yeah, outside there.
We'll deal with that with adjacency. As long as we have the square footage
Yeah.
right now is all I care.
Yeah, the
Where
square
it goes,
footage is
I
in
don't
the
care.
building. Yeah, all right, good. Okay, so the last item here is, let me talk about this. Circulation and partitions at 20% grossing factor. I get about, so what I did here was, I have all the program space. Using a known item like Ludlow, I was able to calculate all the program space and use the total building footprint. And when you do the math, you figure out how much space you devoted to circulation and walls. And that gives me my grossing factor of 0.2, which I think is a pretty good grossing factor. So I use that to calculate how much circulation space we'll need in our building, or how much we're planning to have. And that includes these gathering the oases spaces that we have. So when you,
Just so you know, a school, when you do your MSBA project, the grossing factor is up to 0.42 they'll allow. Yeah, because corridors, non-teaching spaces, so their grossing factor is a little bit larger and calculated slightly different.
For the folks who don't speak architect as much, circulation space is hallways. So hallways, corridors, and all little nooks and crannies that hold, mechanical ductwork and plumbing chases and that kind of stuff.
Access and egress.
Yeah, exactly. So that we lump that all together and call it circulation. But it's hallways is the easy way to think about it. Everything
More
else is,
students and seniors
yeah, it's all been accounted for otherwise in the,
stampede at the school. Right?
exactly.
So that 20% include the little spaces you had talked about before, these alcoves that people may want to stop and have a read something or whatever?
That's right. Because it's so intricately tied to the circulation, it made sense to do it, and I saw that those spaces were well received. So I didn't separate them in the program. I just included them as part of the circulation because we might have 2, we might have 3. I'm not sure yet.
Got a question?
That's what you currently do with the medical area. The hallway is the place we wait when we're gonna go see the nurse to get our blood pressure checked. So, and it's pretty, it's just outside of the office. And there will be some in these places throughout the building. So those will be available. They can tailor them to whatever way you like.
I have another question in the back.
Audrey Reed, 3 Deming Way. Now, you might be coming to this, and I can't wait, because I'll forget what I want to say. Anyways, back when I brought up the shower, all the architects said, well, we're not going to make it hurricane-proof. Well, why aren't you? Hopefully you're making it out of red brick, you're not making it out of wood, like they did for years in Wilmington, and they then tore them all down. We need the senior center to last a long time. So that's my question, are you building it out of red brick?
What the building will be built out of will be determined at a later date. Traditionally.
I'm already just putting that in.
Yeah,
there.
no, traditionally, a building of this size, we don't wanna have flat roofs, so they usually have wood trusses. So, there'll definitely be some wood in this building. What the facades are, will be determined later. I think that the architects are starting to do studies of existing Wilmington structures to try and incorporate it into what they believe Wilmington is. And you guys will either go, ugh, or you'll go, hey, that's pretty good. So that'll come at a later date as we get down into facades. But the building will be built to last 50 to 75 years at a minimum.
Okay, thank you.
You'll still be here.
So, we were just talking about circulation, corridors. Corridors will include sitting areas with bookcases, built-in benches for miscellaneous storage, permanent areas for temporary exhibits, and that would be areas on the wall that maybe you put changing exhibits on, it'll have its own hanging system and lighting. So the corridors are not just a way to get from one room to the other, but they help you experience the space, and we're gonna make that as nice an experience as we can.
Perfect.
So underneath total gross footage, which as you can all see, these spaces equal up to around 17,800. If that's the number that we're working with now. Not included in that are some of the outdoor spaces. So the first item here, which you might recall I mentioned before, was the greenhouse solarium. I'm thinking, and then we said potting table, south facing. I'm thinking that might be a freestanding prefabricated structure if we want to have it, but I don't believe that we would, like you said before, not incorporate into the actual building itself. So I included it in the program. We can find a nice place for it, but I'm thinking it's something that's different than the actual building. And then I wanted to address the main patio area. So right now, the one that you have now is around 800 square feet. Look at that, I bumped it up to 2,500 square feet. That's about 50 by 50 feet. It's an open terrace area. It seems like you could get at least 160 people there using counts from the building code. It could be that I kind of added some open ideas here. We could have some covered outdoor space if we want. Either covered with maybe part of the building, if we want to do like a recessed area underneath the roof. I suggested perhaps 900 square feet, but being that it's outdoor space, it's not it's not conditioned, it's not in the thermal envelope, so it doesn't cost as much. Certainly not the open terrace area. I guess what I need to understand here is, do you want just open and later on we'll figure out how to get umbrellas or tents or a trellis, or do we want something now that's integrated with the building?
I personally, and I'm gonna, if I can, Mr. Chairman, speak first. I think you should just block out this space, put it aside, because it's going to, the site that we choose will determine the terracing, the topography, whether it's sloping, non-sloping. There's a lot of factors on outdoor space so that it's not expensive space, but useful space. And I think we ought to wait until we have a selected site before developing it. But I think we should hold it as a marker to let everybody know, yeah, there's gonna be outdoor space.
Yeah.
There's gonna be outdoor recreation space. We just don't know what it is at this point in time.
Yeah.
Similar to the kitchen. We know the kitchen's 1,000 square feet. We don't know what the layout is right now. We'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's true for a lot of the spaces. And now we're pretty much done here, but yeah, to your point, there's some spaces in the building that we might want to face north, so it gets north light. There's some spaces where we might want to have facing east, so that in the morning you get good sunlight. All of those factors come into consideration when we start doing the site evaluations.
So in terms of the outdoor space, right now, for example, there's a bocce court next to the, to one side of the senior center. Other spaces like that, are those aren't part of this 2,500, are they?
No, and, excuse me, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, so I was just curious as to the extent that there are other outdoor spaces contemplated for recreational use, are those to be determined, or?
I'm gonna say yes, they're to be determined and to be coordinated with the site selection, because there'll be some sites where we have very little outdoor space. There's some sites where we'll have more freedom to move around and create larger spaces.
Depending on the restrictions of the
That's
site.
right, orientation, we might, so as the building kind of moves around with its, 17,000 square feet, we'll create some outdoor spaces off of the building. The cafe and lounge area up front might want a door to the outside and a little patio area. Those will be determined once we start moving forward on the sites, and different sites might have different exterior amenities.
So, then, suppose we're talking about something like with a pergola effect or an actual gazebo effect, which is more of a permanent structure, that I think of a permanent structure. Again, would that still be put aside to be determined? Or would that be factored in the type of building, and think of it now?
I think it depends on the size of the pergola and the gazebo. The 2,500 square feet is a huge space. It's 3 times the size of this
No, we
room.
won't.
That's right, no.
So if
And that's why
if
I'm
you're gonna put a
asking.
pergola in that space, are we adding space above and beyond? I mean, I think it's unfair to define what we're gonna do on the outdoor space.
It really depends on the site, because a couple of the sites are tighter than the others. And
Right, right.
I know that this has taken a while tonight to get
Yeah,
to this
it's gone through
point,
an awful
and
lot.
I'm not sure, we probably have a lot more stuff to review as well, but the sites vary in size and areas to include these amenities, so.
Well, as long as we get to outdoor recreation, because and that was the only reason I asked that question, is with, when we went to Ludlow, I mean, she had the very nice patio there, but I don't believe in those portable umbrellas and things. I would have rather something.
She has 0 outdoor recreation.
Right.
She didn't want it.
She didn't want any.
Town didn't want outdoor recreation, no pickleball, no bocce, not part of their program. That particular community doesn't want it.
Right. And when we went to Westfield, we didn't see any other than the tent in the middle of
Right,
the,
there was
Nope,
nothing there.
Westfield's the same way.
yeah. Yeah.
In Western Mass, believe it or not, they all have giant billiard rooms though, because
Oh, yeah.
they have leagues.
So,
So
it
it
is
varies, it really does vary by community. We tried to put a pickleball court in Greenfield, and the community didn't want it.
they had outdoor gardens.
They had outdoor gardens and vegetable
And
gardens.
I think that's an important thing. I think Victory Gardens, where there would be outdoor gardens. As long as we don't throw this out completely and we
Well,
come
that-
back to talking
Yeah,
about.
that's why it's
outdoor.
here, because I envision that when we get to the exterior, it's going to be a whole meeting. And before that meeting, you'll probably have a couple of subgroup discussions. I mean, we don't really know what you want for outdoor activities. You might not know what you want for outdoor activities yet. You might be thinking, grand or not so grand, we don't know.
But I do have to say, and I think Diane's saying it very nicely in the sense that for Wilmington and for the older population here in town, outdoor space is extremely important. It's a strong priority.
We parked in front of the pickleball courts over here. Boy, that was a hot
They're the only ones we have.
So I would welcome, suggestions that then we can apply to the building and the different sites that we have. And, I'm not saying they'll all fit, but we'll certainly investigate anything of interest in terms of outdoor program space.
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm hearing a real priority put on active outdoor space, as well as passive outdoor space, and the connection of the building to the uses outside. And yeah, it's definitely a different tone in this community with that connection. It's much stronger here than it is in other places. And that's really good feedback, because that really helps us.
Yeah.
And that's integral to the concepts that we're exploring. And we really want to bring the outside as a major aspect of what this building is, and connection to the outside, and translation between
Well, as
inside and
long
outside.
as you keep that in the back of your mind, as, you know, as we're looking at the site selection and, you know, creating this building, we don't want to just be taken up by the building, you know. Outdoor space is going to be a big part of this particular building.
That's a great pivot, actually, to the next topic of the agenda.
I was waiting for you to go there.
Yeah, I could hear you over here. Marco.
Skip 2 pages.
Thank you, Marco, for that incredibly good deep dive. We got an amazing amount of feedback from this. I'm really excited to now fold this into our design logic and really engage in the next step.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
There's a lot of information there. I mean, the item on our agenda to cover all these for the programs, I think we touched upon basically everything, the needs.
And with good conclusive results, because I'm sure that this is actionable and that, you know, we can, we're gonna move on this.
But I think it's worth mentioning that that Marco, you did, my gosh, I can't believe how much you did, but I think that we all got together and did those tours together.
Right.
And you kind of got an idea what we wanted, thank you so much for interpreting, what everyone had shared and has been sharing, so,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Jeez,
And we'll continue
I
to
thought
be
it was
doing
the
this.
OPM.
I actually have one question on the topic of programming. How many staff do you have or foresee having?
How much staff do I have? I have 4.
Okay. So we'll account for 6.
Yeah.
You know,
when we get
that's a loaded question, because you have a lot of volunteers in the senior center, and I don't
That's
think,
true, too.
I don't think you can answer the question
Yeah,
like
visiting people.
4
volunteers,
FTEs or 6 FTEs.
Okay.
People that come in.
Jeff's looking at his budget.
Additional staff members that you'll be putting on.
Right.
4 permanent, though.
Right, I'm talking about paid staff.
Yes.
Yes, I'm talking about paid staff.
Okay.
Well, that's a good place to start. It's a really good question. Thank you for remembering that, Grant. We'll use that to start developing the admin suite, and then we'll build out from there based on volunteer staff and how to accommodate,
I mean-
and how to staff the building.
The staff in Ludlow is pretty similar, and, you know, they have 6 modular spaces, and they get used by the volunteers, and they get used by the visiting staff too.
Yeah.
The doctors, the nurses, the things that come, so
It's all about
I just
flexibility.
wanna be careful on trying to box yourself in a corner based on FTEs. It's a bad way to go.
Yeah, it's much more fluid than that. Yeah, we understand.
And just one final note. This work here took 2 meetings of almost 4.5 hours each of the focus groups that we were, you know, talking about and discussing. And then we gave that to, actually, the gentleman left here, Ken Clarkin, who then took the whole spreadsheet and, you know, put them in and developed also some questions about some of the criteria. But I also want to give a thank you to the team that met there. And
Thank
hopefully that helped you along the way.
Very helpful.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and then as Diane, we took and visited out to both locations to take a good look at it. Dan, you guys described everything that was out there, we got to see, so there was a lot to it, you know, so.
And Marco, there may be additional feedback. We do have obviously almost half the committee not here tonight, so they very well may watch this meeting or provide some feedback based on.
Yep, no, we're ready for that.
And I'll
I have
have
to
this
say Teresa
presentation will
did.
be sent out.
Yeah, Teresa, I know Teresa made her comments.
Yeah.
So one thing we didn't give evidence of in tonight's presentation, but we do have, is a owner's decision matrix. And your comments are being tallied in a rolling set of notes that we have, and we'll share that with you in our next meeting. And so every time you bring comments in, we'll add those to, and we'll keep them gathered together by topic. And so that way, if we hear one day, we really want a pickleball court, and then the next meeting, we hate pickleball, we'll say, okay, which way do we want to go? And we'll keep track and try to close out each of these items as they come up so that they're addressed. And you know that we've heard you and that we've addressed your questions. All right, next on the agenda was originally going to be a report on the Ludlow field trip visit in Westfield as well. Do you still want to do that, or do you want us to skip over to the site?
I think we could skip over at this point and for the time.
I appreciate that.
The next item was design. Were you going to talk design? Or?
That was actually a design reflection on your visit.
All right, so we'll just go right to skip over that and go to the site.
So I do want to point the, I'm not sure what page that is, the adjacency diagram, the one with all the bubbles and the dashed lines.
Yeah, it's page 4.
Page 4. This, as we talked about a little earlier, this is a graphic representation of the program, give or take.
Yeah.
All the sizes are proportional to each other. So something that's really big on the program list of spaces is really big graphically on the page here. So, so that's the adjacency diagram.
This is what you're talking about, right?
Yes. Yes. So those are all roughly, they're proportional. So little spaces, little, and then you can see how things begin to cluster together.
And we'll edit as, it'll be corresponding to the program and your comments on the spaces as well.
So I touched on this earlier, and we can certainly get more detail into this. This is a fluid diagram, but generally speaking, yes, it includes all the items from the program, and we're starting to put them next to each other where they want to be, hence the name adjacency diagram, right? So generally, we divided to the left. Well, you can kind of see, I mentioned the entry sequence. And
we'll update this and put the quiet on one side,
right.
Noisy on the other. I think this was an intergenerational, like, we want to revise it again for the updated program and give you a new version.
Okay, I'm good with that, yeah. Okay.
Because I think we have some good stuff we forgot to put on this version. So we'll give you a new version.
But the point is you're beginning to think about adjacencies, and we can see how the program starts to become a building.
Yes.
So this is like that first building block. In the old days, we'd put a piece of paper on the wall, would literally draw bubbles. We call them bubble diagrams. Of course, with the computer, you don't have to do that anymore. But it's the same thing. We'll get to where all the adjacencies are, or where the overlaps are, and
Yep.
And
we'll get there.
The most important thing now is that now that the program is a little more fixed, it's a little easier, because before we had lots of program spaces, not sure if we're using them all, but right now we can develop an accurate adjacency diagram which will really help visualize how the spaces lay out. And probably right now, we'll look at the sites, which will give us more information on that aspect of the project.
We did have a question in the back, so.
Fred.
Fred Hogan, Middlesex Avenue. Companion rooms, I think you got one less than you had on. There's only 2 that I could find.
Yes, you're absolutely correct there, and it'll be updated on the next.
And then we took these 2 out, I think.
We'll give you
We took the volunteer and the private office out.
Eagle
Other than
eye.
that,
I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Keeping us honest. Yes, we'll give you an updated version. New and improved. All right.
Yeah, that's fine, and I will share this with Terry, and Terry, if you want to share it with your, any of your
I
committees.
think they have a little scales off of them too, right? Percentage-wise.
I think with regard to earlier, we had a slightly different program. I'll be honest, we were changing the program right up until this afternoon.
On the
so
fly.
Not a big deal.
There were just tweaks that we were making that haven't been
Yeah,
reflected in that
I got
diagram.
I got a spot for it, and, it matched up pretty good, but, size-wise, I'm sure it's gonna change a little bit, based on the percentage.
It's
they
good.
have.
They're paying attention.
Yeah, it's
I like
good.
it. I like the
Paying
homework.
attention.
That's good. Perfect.
All right.
All right.
Just a quick question. Did we talk about before, it almost seems like we did, and I don't remember the answer, the reference to the commercial kitchen being what would appear to be at the front of the building and the
Yes.
expectation of having to bring in materials and supplies and all.
Yes, I do want to speak to that actually, because it did come up in our last meeting. This diagram doesn't have a front.
Oh, okay.
There's no front or back to this diagram. This is conceptually, this is next to that, and
Alright.
something
An
else is.
adjacency diagram.
It's about adjacency. So we can flip and mirror
I
and
had the
spin
same
and
question.
bend and do all those kinds of things and still satisfy the diagram. That's a great question.
Do you have a question?
I have a question. This arts and craft room, that's going to be used by multiple groups? The artists? Yeah. And looking at this, I need to clean out all my stuff and put it in storage?
I don't know how
No.
to answer that question, because we
so-
have an arts and crafts room, and then we
Yeah,
have some
but-
storage.
My supplies would take up a whole wall.
So, before you get into the.
I'm just
the
curious, so I
individual-
can
Yeah.
prepare how I'm gonna organize all of that.
We can't tell you how you're gonna organize it. All we need to know is that the arts and crafts room is large enough for arts and crafts. So that's where we are right now. How the room is laid out, how it's managed, and how, programmatically it works, going from plaster in the morning to clay in the afternoon to painting at night. We're not there yet. What we do know is that we have enough space to do a lot of crafts. Some of that are dry crafts and some that are wet crafts. The wet crafts are gonna have sinks, the dry crafts are not gonna have sinks.
That's
And you're gonna
great.
have the ability to put a wall down the middle so you can have two classes at the same time. Take the wall out and have a big one class, whether it's dry or wet.
I'm talking about permanent though. I mean, I would have to clean that room out and put it in the storage?
No, this configuration, you can add those two together and then put them back. That probably could end up being part of the outside, anything.
Yeah, it's just.
It's just a design.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're just making
I'm
sure
just,
we get the
no,
square
I'm just
footage.
thinking because, okay, if that's gonna be the case, what do I have to do? Like right now, I went out and bought all kinds of baskets so the girls could put all their paint and their pieces and everything in the basket, cause we had to take them out underneath the tent, cause we can't fit in the room. So, if I'm going to have to store,
Carol, can I interrupt you just for 1 minute?
yeah,
So I understand your issue is storage, okay?
Yeah.
And a permanent storage. So to tell you the truth, so now we know the space that we're going to use for ceramics, okay? And
Okay.
for our arts and crafts but when it comes to the storage, you know how we were talking about storage and some of it was, we have all the storage space and we can be flexible with it?
yeah.
We haven't gotten that far yet, so we
Okay.
can't get to that. That sounds like, please correct me if I'm wrong, sounds like final, more detail. So we can't, that piece will come a little later.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about
Then I
that
don't
piece right
have
now.
to worry about
Nope,
So-
nope, you don't have to
so
worry
when we
about
do-
it.
separating things and.
No,
When we
not at all.
when we
Not at
develop
all.
the room, there'll probably be a wall of cabinetry. That's all storage.
Okay,
So, individual doors,
yeah,
individual things.
that's fine. I just don't
Okay,
wanna have to.
we just aren't there yet. Right now, we're at, we need 900 square feet.
And I'm gonna take 800.
Okay.
You know that.
All right. All right, we'll take one more before we
We
move.
got the puzzle, the pieces, now we just gotta put them in the right places.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct.
If you want to move on to the next item.
I would love to.
It is getting a little late for us.
Yeah, please.
It's getting late. I get the pleasure of presenting the pretty pictures, which is always my favorite anyway. So even though Grant did the visuals, I'll do the talking. You just correct me when I go astray. Okay. There are 4 sites. We're going to start with the site plans, the page.
Now, tonight, just before we go too
Green.
far on this, we won't vote on any sites tonight. We're going to have a joint meeting with the other building committee. Although there might be a site tonight that we look at that we say, this is not gonna work, so take it off the table. But we won't be voting on any sites or anything tonight, so we can kind of move
Very good.
along.
Is that, but the next meeting we're gonna have will be just for the town hall with that architect, right? and then eventually there'll be a meeting after that with both. Or is that
I'm
next meeting?
I'm envisioning the next meeting with the town hall will get us to where this committee was at the last meeting.
Right.
And then, but site-wise, we should be able to have a joint meeting after the
Yes.
next town hall. So it'll go senior, town hall admin, joint,
Correct.
senior, town hall.
We just finalized a lot of the paperwork and everything with that, so we will be moving forward.
Great, thank
Right.
you.
All right. So the first site I want to talk about, let me preface this a little. We had some really good investigations with SLR, our civil and landscape architect. We've gathered a lot of information on these sites, found some interesting things, found some little bit of unexpected things, and you might remember Mark Aragoni, who was here before, said, I got some impressions of which ones might be good sites, and now that we've walked them, it's changed. And he said, be prepared for my preference to change again, and that's why I'm not going to tell you. That definitely happened again. We found some things out about each of these sites, and our minds were changed a couple times too. So we want to share what we came up with because we think it's pretty interesting. So, site number 1 is the Town Green site. The former Swain School, I believe, is one way to think about it. It's the first one on your list. I'm going to do this verbally to save you on slides. One of the things we found out was that there are no sewer or gas connections to this site currently. They're not. It's not going onto the site underneath the parking lot, and so that would have to be brought to the site. It does have water and electric and storm sewer, but sanitary and gas are not there. Now they're not very far away, but they're not on the site.
It's not catastrophic.
It's not catastrophic. It's not the worst thing ever. Other things about the site that you already know is there's a big hill halfway across, and so you see the yellow bubbles on this plan show the 2 buildable sites. So places where it's reasonably conducive to put a building. So not in the middle. One of the top part already has the Bazell Senior Center on it, which you can't put something in place of another without getting rid of one of them, so that presents a certain challenge. And then the other half of the site is a giant parking lot, which is very used, and we talked about all of the uses that that parking lot serves to the community in our last meeting. And so what you're seeing now is the white dashed line around the outside is the setback, so that, you know, we can't put the building too close to the edge according to the local zoning rules, which is totally fine. And this site overall is about 6.5 acres with a swath down the middle that's not terribly usable. So that's the outline for that site. Generally, big chunks of usable space, big hill in the middle, it's missing some services, but not bad. I'm going to go through all 4 and then we can talk. So the second site is the Glen Road site, which, is that right?
We are on the second site right
We are on the second site currently. You are here, exactly. The benefits of this site is, well, it has all of the services, water, sewer, gas, electric, storm. You might notice, looking at this picture, that the ball fields don't fit on the paper. We actually clipped part of the ball fields off to keep every one of the sites at the same size on the page, so that when you're looking from one page to the next, they're all at the same scale. Also, because the ball fields are very well developed and very well used, we quickly did a prejudgment to say we're probably not going to build on the ball fields. Now, do tell us if we're wrong. If there's a change of heart, by all means. But for the time being, we focused on this spot as the buildable area for the project.
This is a question I think we're gonna need answered for both projects.
Yeah.
Can the ball fields be used as swing space? In other words, can we build on the ball fields and then replace the ball fields with new ball fields when we're done building? So have a temporary loss of ball
There is
field.
property farther back that's not being used, it's walking trails right now,
Right.
so that would have to be something to be discussed. Also, it's Palmer Field, not Cushing Field.
Oh,
Just
sorry
please
about
make
that.
note of that.
Oops. Oh,
On Google it says Cushing.
we can change that.
Absolutely.
So here, we wanted to make note of some amenities that are already here. The money that's been spent on the pickleball courts and the playground, and also that the fields are well established and cared for, and the beautiful copse of trees that separates the pine grove between the two. there's an inherent shared use on this site, which is a potential constraint, in that no matter what we do for a senior center, if we put it here, we have to accommodate the parking for this and the parking for all of the recreation uses. So that's a constraint, but it's also a huge benefit because you get a lot more life out of the project in this location.
But the other thing, more importantly, would be, at this site, would be that the town
Town hall's in the
hall
way, yeah.
has to go away.
Yes, that's right.
And in addition to that, the town hall then probably would become a priority to be built first.
Yes,
If that site were chosen.
yes.
So
It's a domino thing, yes.
that would have to be something that would be seriously considered.
You bring up a good point, which is evaluation criteria, which is that's my punchline at the end, but I like that you jumped it, because are there things that we haven't recognized yet that we want to consider as a really important criteria? And sequence is a really good one.
Correct.
So, since you're on both committees, the criterion really needs to be a criterion that both committees agree on,
Yes.
because we're all looking at the same sites as a community.
Yes.
It's not an us versus a them, it's not the senior center versus the town. It's a town-wide project, and we need to make sure that each use goes in the right location. So I think that's why George and I are already thinking ahead towards a joint meeting. We can see it coming. There's going to have to be an interaction between the two committees on what the criterion's gonna be. And that includes the two designers. So, we'll coordinate all of that pre-meeting stuff for that so that we have a productive meeting. But your comments are correct. I mean, that it applies to almost all the sites, with the exception of Middlesex Ave, which is, the Whitfield School site.
Which is the next site we'll be discussing.
Yeah, which is the next site, so that one is just, it's tough to get in and out of.
I love your transitions, it makes my job easy.
Okay.
So, now the Whitfield School site. When SLR went out to the site and walked it to observe the location of any potential wetlands, because there's a wetland on one side and there's a stream on the other, we had a pretty good idea they connected. They do connect. It's a little different than what was mapped on the GIS, but it is a wetland boundary edge. It basically cuts the site in half. And unfortunately, it cuts the back off of the site. So you'd have to cross that wetland to get to the other side of the site, which means that your largest site in gross acreage, which was about 19 acres, 10 acres, is really not. It's not nearly that big. It's only really the front part of the site that you see that's available for use, which is where the soccer field is. So this makes for, that buildable area up front by the street is really the only buildable area where the school used to be, where the soccer field is now, and a little bit into the woods. That's pretty much the whole site. Another thing about this site is that it does not have septic sewer. It doesn't have sewer service.
Right.
It has everything
It's
else,
not
but not
close
sewer.
either, is
It has gas?
It has gas, but it does not have sewer.
Does not have sewer, okay.
I mean, with the constraints here, I don't want to speak for the entire community, but I don't think you want to waste your time a lot just looking at this, trying to shoehorn a senior center and restrict some of the things that we looked at in these programs tonight. So I'm thinking that this one could be taken right off the table.
That space that you outlined here in the yellow, is that the footprint of a 17,803 square foot building, or does that represent the building footprint plus some amount of?
That's buildable area.
Yeah,
That's
that
what
actually is, the
Okay.
area that, it will be parking lot or building, it's just the available area.
Constraints.
It's the area you can disturb.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess thinking about it, and I don't know if we can big picture this, but from the perspective of the building footprint, which is roughly 17.8 at this point, right? And then there's gonna be a required amount of parking, and I'm not sure what the square footage of that is, but we could probably come up with a number.
It's about 3 times the building footprint.
Oh, really? Wow,
Yeah.
okay, so when you put all that together,
45,000.
So I did some preliminary test fits on this site, and it's extremely tight.
Okay.
That's why I think
And
instead
it
of
makes
wasting our
access
time
very
on this
difficult.
site, we'll offer it up to somebody
It's
else.
certainly not gonna have outdoor amenities, which is,
And really no room for
as
expansion
they
either.
kept talking about outdoor activities, you know, I'm marking X's on this site, cause you're just not gonna have the ability to do it.
If it were your only site in town and you said, this is what we're gonna do, this is where we have to work, we could totally do it. We could make any number of compensations to make it work, but seeing as how we're evaluating 4 sites, it is definitely difficult. And it's
Well,
not as difficult.
I think you're onto something too, that we probably should try and get some direction on while we have everybody. And that is, obviously, in, let's call it an 18,000 square foot building, if it was 2 floors, it would be 19,000, so it'd be 8,500 square feet each floor. So, you know, is a 2-story building anything you wanna look at for a senior center? So we did, I intentionally had them look at Westfield so they could see a 2-story space as well as a single-story space. One was 24,000 and one was 18,000. And I think they can answer the question as to whether they want a single or 2. But like he said, if we had to go there, we could, but it's just not ideal.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
all right, so the site we're talking about, you know, the footprint and, but there's another major thing to this site. And that major thing is the traffic. That there's major things happening in that area, that's growing.
Yep.
And so, I think if this was the property, at one point you were speaking, I don't know if Mark had said, you know, if you come out, you have to make sure you turn right. You know, that's a,
I've
I have a
thought
major
about
concern.
consideration of eliminating this site, that's kind of why. And to Dan's question, as we're talking, and I'm not gonna speak for you or the rest, but I would think single level is kind of what we've been looking at, what we've been, you know, leaning towards originally.
George, I just though, yes, we've been looking at single. I just think that whenever the site is selected, I think it would be helpful to the committee to see what a 2-story would look like, or a 1-story. If the 1-story would encroach on maybe some of our outdoor activities, we may be better looking at a 2-story building. But to rule it out right now might be kind of premature until the site is selected.
Right, I wouldn't rule out the structure, but I would ruling out this site location.
Yes, and I totally agree with you on that.
Right.
And I don't think we should waste any more time, although we don't have all the other members here, it's unfortunate, you know, to drag things on. But, I don't see this as a
No, I
potential
don't.
site at all.
I'm not saying to rule out anything. What I'm trying to get is a gauge in a direction, because the next step is going to be starting to plot the buildings on these sites, even graphically, just graphically. So there, you know, I think we could graphically show it as a 2-story or a single-story. But a 2-story does become a bigger building because you have 2 sets of stairways and you have an elevator and the costs associated with both. So just because.
I wouldn't wanna just summarily take this off the table, but clearly, it sounds like of the first 3 you've talked about to this point, this is in the 3rd seed, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, in the space behind the area that is the developable property, so is all of that area back there not usable even for recreation purposes? Is it and I'm just throwing this out, you know, whether it is or isn't. You know, is it possible to have, you know, to design something so that there's a bridge over this little stream or whatever it is that brings you out into a space that could be then used for recreational purposes, or?
You bring up an excellent point, and I appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. It could be fantastic for hiking. It could be used for any number of passive activities, but it can't be used for, I should say, it can't easily be used to put a building on. And so getting traffic, vehicular circulation, or a building to the other half of the site is very difficult. It could be used for, it could be a wonderful place to go for hikes, but developing it even as something like a ball field could be very, very difficult. Disturbing wetlands, there's buffer zones of up to 100 feet, so that you don't disturb the benefits of the wetlands. It makes it very hard to do any real substantial changes, which is on purpose.
And I think, even though Paul Melorani is not here tonight, I think he spoke at the last meeting about how useful the Whitfield soccer field is in light of when we have wet seasons and everything. And I think that should send a clear message that I don't think we want to get in a potential conflict with any groups.
Right.
You know, for building this center.
Yes. We want this to be positive and beneficial to all, as many
Yes.
stakeholders as possible.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Good words.
Thank
Good
you.
choice. Thank you. Okay.
So,
Yes.
if I may, I'm gonna go to the last site. And this is we call it St. Dorothy's site because it's next to St. Dorothy's. Currently, it's fully wooded, meaning there's just a lot of trees there right now. Scrub brush trees, some mature, some immature. It's just kind of wooded it seems a little bit left over. There were some houses there. I believe it was acquired from the Archdiocese. Whatever was there was demolished. There seems to be a little bit of debris left when we walked the site previously. It does have a full complement of services, so water, sewer, gas, electric, and storm. So it's in good shape there. It's on a major road and a minor road, sits between them. So we got a quick correction today when we were looking at the parcels. Because the town owns all of the parcels along Glen Road, there's actually a potential for an additional access point on the back of the site off of Glen Road, as well as off of Main Street. Main Street through this section is fairly straight, so you have good line of sight access. Curb cuts are always a challenge, because I believe, is this section of Main Street the one that's also a state road?
Yes.
So there's a little bit of complication there, not impossible. It's actually the smallest site, I believe, at 5.5 acres. So it's a.
Well, you're not including all that land.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
That's right. It's 7.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction. Yeah, this was a previous calculation before we knew about the extra
Right.
parcels.
Yeah, but it's five,
It's
it's
still- it's
5
still-
acres of buildable area.
Exactly.
The dog leg is
It
gonna
is
be
still a
roadway.
smaller site.
It is the smallest site, but, so it's the smallest buildable area in air quotes, but it is all contiguous in a rather, rectangular trapezoidal kind of chunk, which makes it very easy to build on, gives us a lot of flexibility. Yes, it would need to be cleared to be built on, but other than that, it actually offers a lot of positive options. I hope I'm not putting too much English on this, if you will, on a spin, but this actually presents itself very favorably, other than just the clearing of the site.
Good.
Traffic's an issue on this one as well, sight lines, that kind of thing, but, yeah, not bad.
I think the two means of access off of Glen Road, Main Street, that's interesting.
Yes, yeah, that was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Flexibility, as you can tell, is a really positive thing, both inside the building and outside the building.
Okay.
So those are our findings. Some sites have all the services they need, some don't, some have a lot of traffic, some have existing uses. These are all decision points that we're really looking forward to meeting with the other design team to come up with some mutually agreed upon evaluation criteria for the sites. And I really appreciate your point, Dan, about this being a community effort. Because the more that the decision is made collaboratively between the two committees, the more efficiently we'll be able to operate and design.
Can I say something, please?
In the back.
Audrey Reed. Anyways, this is what I'll say about it. The main thing here is we need to get this passed at town meeting when it comes. And we do not want to alienate the young people in the town about their sports fields. So those two sites, in my opinion, should be left alone. And I think this site right here at St. Dorothy's, it even has that little arm that goes out there for walking paths and all kinds of outside things. So to me, the main thing is that it has to pass a town hall meeting, and so you don't want to alienate the young people who are looking forward to these sports fields being taken away from them. That's all I want to say.
It's a really good point.
Thank you.
One thing I would, just if I may, Mr. Chair, I think Ms. Allen brought this up the last time. Just trying to think about each site, 20 years from now. And the question keeps coming up, will that church be there in 20 years? Will the archdiocese sold it to someone else? Something else could be there. Just some food for thought as we consider.
Actually, to that point, and there was a question at the last meeting as to whether there was, the archdiocese was looking to sell property, one or the other site. I did have a conversation with Father Early. It was just right at the end of June, so just before he retired, and he indicated to me that, at least from his knowledge, to the best of his knowledge, there was no conversation about selling one or the other piece of property. Certainly things could change in the future. He did note the personnel transitions that were going on, but he indicated that at the moment, from what he knew, that there was not any plan to sell property.
So don't count on it.
Yeah, that's just speculation at this point.
I don't know many other communities this size that have two Catholic churches at this point. I
Right.
think it would be my hope they're still there 100 years from now, but may not be the case.
They're consolidating down in the South Shore where I am. We have three churches that are within 3 miles of each other. Even though they're 3 different communities, they're consolidating into one church.
There's a lot of things going on regarding the Catholic parish here. So, and a lot of us are being kept in the dark about it, and including Father Early, I think. He was kept in the dark about a lot of things. So it's just something, an option out there to think about for the future, because the only thing constant is change. And change can happen very rapidly, so we can move on.
I think the other couple of things I want to point out is, did you put the evaluation criteria in the printouts?
Not in the printouts.
Okay, don't worry about it then.
Yeah, I'd like to go over that with you.
Yep.
Before we
Post it, yep.
go public with it, because I don't wanna,
No, I agree.
I don't wanna skew anybody's minds.
I think we should pull it.
I really think we should try and, it's really important, because you do have 2 separate committees looking at the same thing, so we wanna try and get them all to agree on that criteria, and not have one ahead of the other.
So I had promised a schedule with bars and progress things for the last meeting, so I wanted to deliver on that for this meeting. So there's 2 schedules in here that I want to skip to. There's the mostly blue one, and then there's the blue and red one. Let's start with the mostly blue one, which I think is called, it doesn't have a title. Project meeting, there you go, thank you. Yours has a title, mine doesn't, beautiful. So one thing I want to point out here is, when we put this together, it was to hit town meeting. That was the goal. So we started out with the number of weeks we expected each of these tasks and phases to take to hit town meeting, and unfortunately, the schedule has slid. So we're a little behind.
So before you go much further
Yep.
than that, so the goal had always been, when we started 6 months ago, to try and have this project hit a fall town meeting, but I thought the last time I was in here, the town meeting wasn't gonna be till March.
Well, so the, of course, the annual town meeting will be the end of
April
April,
30th.
beginning of May. But the, given the MSBA project with the Wildwood and the deadlines
Timeline for
there, we need to have a special town meeting that takes place prior to March 28th of 2022. So preliminarily, and this is, hasn't been cast in stone, and ultimately the selectmen have to decide the date, but it appears that there would be a special town meeting sometime in February of 2022.
So would it be unreasonable for us to try to move forward on the February special town meeting?
No, I think, if we have everything lined up in time.
Because this is queuing up perfectly, because if we're done towards the third week of December, that gives us a whole month to work out all the little details with finance and so on and so forth, and make sure we hit all the stakeholders prior to the actual town meeting.
Yep.
We'll have all the financials probably somewhere around November.
What about finance committee meetings and things like that that would,
Well, so all of that's gonna have to, happen, it will happen anyways because of the
Twice.
MSBA.
because of, as,
Yeah, so there'll be, a finance committee, meeting or set of meetings in the finance public hearing that will take place in anticipation of a special town meeting, at least for an MSBA request for funding. And, if this project was to go for say a February meeting, then this would be part of that discussion as well.
Dan's having us in for Christmas Eve right here, he's cooking.
I wouldn't do that to your new child.
Thank you.
But New Year's, off the table.
Okay. Yes, we'll have to have all those finance committee and the joint
Right.
meetings ahead of both town meetings.
Right. Yeah, it'll be an interesting year.
But it would take us out of the annual town meeting, and we will have moved on, provided that we only need a
Right.
town meeting vote and not a town meeting vote and a ballot.
Right.
Which is up to finance and the board of selectmen.
When would the warrant be closed for the month? It was in February. I'm trying to work backwards.
3 months.
For a special town meeting?
Yeah,
Um,
roughly.
I
November,
think it
December?
was- it,
7 days statutorily.
yeah, I mean, we could close it, the board could close it even in January. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a different schedule than the annual town meeting, which is,
So,
I mean, the finance committee should be only really dealing with 2 items. It's not like they're gonna be dealing with 27 departments, those poor people.
No,
right.
no, not at that point, no.
So, just to be clear here, if this February special town meeting would take place, then this article for the final design of this building, senior building, were to take place, we need 2/3 vote.
2/3 vote for the borrowing,
Right,
right.
okay.
Unless you're appropriating from available funds.
Be a good,
Yeah.
pretty big crowd if those 2 articles.
Oh,
It's complimentary too.
Well,
okay.
Unless.
Hand in hand.
So we'll be talking
Big time.
February.
February.
Well, yeah, I'd say, and that's just preliminarily. I mean, ultimately, you know, the Board of Selectmen will decide when the meeting is, but just the way things are shaping up, the MSBA,
But you're not having a November town meeting.
no,
We don't have-
we're not in a
Alright, so-
position to
so
have
the-
that.
The point we were just trying to make, so we'll accommodate your schedule. The point we're making is we're about 6 weeks beyond a November town meeting.
Mhm.
So anytime you wanna go after that, we'll be ready to go.
That's if both groups come to a consensus, right, in a few months from now, you're saying on site location.
I'm making the assumption that a site is selected within two or three meetings, yes.
2 or 3 meetings or 2 or 3 weeks?
2 or 3 meetings.
You had my hopes up there for a second.
I mean, it's a tough decision.
I know.
It's a big decision on where the town hall's gonna go and the senior center's gonna go. And all we could do is make a recommendation. Ultimately, the board of selectmen's decision, I'm guessing.
Town meeting's decision.
Town meeting will make the decision.
Absolutely.
Well, certainly the town meeting will decide.
Through the vote, I guess through the appropriations.
Right.
Yeah.
You will.
We'll set the date,
Right.
and just to be clear, we'll be one of 25,000 on the day of.
So,
This is really good information.
so this is, what we have for you.
All right, so,
Pretty productive.
with respect of our time too, we're not gonna schedule our next meeting. We don't have enough committee members here, obviously.
Do you have any idea roughly when you're looking? Which month?
Yeah,
Well, we really need to have a joint meeting.
right,
September, I would say.
right, quickly, so I'm trying to get to the town.
I was
hall.
thinking late August, try to have we have a meeting next week with town hall admin. I was kinda hoping we could
Oh, okay.
try and get another one 2 or 3 weeks later with the joint committee.
Maybe the last week in August.
Somewhere there, and if not, it'll be the first or second week in September, and then that's it. You know, we should be able to at least have enough information or get a consensus on which direction we're going in, and then maybe get a vote later in the month of September.
So, I don't mean to interrupt. If you flip to the 6-week look ahead and you see the tasks that we have ahead of us in order to achieve the goals to get to, about 6 weeks past November 1st, so if the whole thing slid 6 weeks,
Yeah,
we need a lot more feedback from you than a meeting in August and a meeting in September. There's a lot more to go through before we can get to, we have to get through test fits and all the things we talked about tonight. We need to work through with you in a series of meetings. A meeting about the exterior, a meeting about the interiors, a meeting about finishes, a meeting about test fits. There's a lot of discussions to have and a lot of decisions to make. So I would push for much more frequent, more regular meetings that can be a mix of virtual meetings and in-person meetings, depending on the content. We can meet virtually if you guys can, and we can present ideas, and everyone will be able to see the screen on their own devices, and we found that to be extremely helpful through going through some more detailed things.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, you heard from us in the last couple of minutes about, you know, our ideas about the timeline, but
Mhm.
I think you just started to talk about that. I mean, I just want to be clear about what we would be signing ourselves up for. I mean, I think you're suggesting almost like bi-weekly
Yes.
yeah.
meetings
Every other week.
leading up to, so we would meet that if we had a special town meeting in February.
I think the other thing we need to be mindful of, and this is maybe a further discussion, is, not any conclusions tonight, but is, you know, these meetings, we've had, what, 2 or 3 of them now, and, but the other element of this is, you know, trying to make sure as many of the folks in the public understand what's happening, and that there isn't this perception that, and I don't mean to suggest this is the case, but that there isn't a perception that this was kind of steamrolled through and that people didn't have an opportunity. And you know, certainly people can watch these meetings on WCTV, attend the meetings. But I guess I do have some measure of concern. There's a balance here between trying to get, move the process along without being accused at a later time of, not having enough public outreach, so to speak.
Well, we definitely need to have public time for public outreach, there's no question about it, and how that's done is another one of those variables by town. Some town managers have their own TV show that people watch, some towns, the Board of Selectmen's the big show in town, so,
Not here.
so, I mean, it varies on how we get that out. I can't speak for Wilmington, but we're geared to do whatever we need to do, present whatever we need to present, make whatever web pages or links or things that you want. I just need to know what you want.
Well, I think Mr. Manager brings up a good point, because obviously parallel to this project is the town will be doing a similar process with the
Right.
town hall and also with the MSBA funding, so, one of the things that I'm worried about is the town administration, can they be spread that thin? There's only so many nights from now until February.
Which
Would
brings
there
me
be a
to
town hall
the
meeding every 3 nights a week? I mean,
In-person meeting is great because we get this, as the audience, we get a lot of input directly, but we're gonna go back to maybe some remote meetings so we can get through them even quicker.
And I don't know if that goes well to other population of folks that we're trying to get input from. I mean, I've seen a lot of people come to the last 2 meetings. I didn't see anybody come to the Zoom meetings. Not to say they didn't watch, but I'm guessing, I think people like to show up and watch on TV.
So I mean, I guess we need to just know where our end point is so that we can take that end point and back into it. If you want us to prepare for the annual town meeting, we can take the annual town meeting and move backwards. I kind of thought when we started down this path, we were trying to have the senior center go first and shortly behind it, the town hall. I'm expecting that the town hall school administration should be queued up to have their study done somewhere around the annual town meeting or shortly thereafter. So it's not, they're gonna catch up fast. Their programming's different than senior center programming.
And I don't mean this the wrong way, but it's not a race, obviously, between the
No,
two.
no.
I can see how it's perceived by that, like, by some folks,
Yeah, I can see how they'd see that, but at the same time, there's the cycle of appropriation that affects all of these projects, because if you miss the cycle of appropriation, costs go up over a year. So, there is a whole, I guess we need direction too. If the project team needs some direction, probably from the administration and the Board of Selectmen, on when you want us to target an appropriation vote. And
Right.
so we can back into it, because you're right, Greg, we got a lot of night meetings ahead of us. And we have a lot of educating to do. And the last thing we wanna do is go to town meeting without educating the public, or you'll have a failed vote.
Right.
And we're not having a failed vote.
The other thing that concerns me, I'm concerned in general about a February town meeting, in terms of whatever was on the docket. We get a storm come through and 17
Push
people
off.
show up, so I'm concerned about that, but I understand the MSBA timeline is very strict, so we'll have to abide by it, but, so to add on more concerns me there too. I guess, again, I think we need to continue this conversation when we have the full complement of this committee. We're missing almost half of our committee members here tonight, and then maybe they would make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen of when they would like to have this come to an end.
What do you want us to do, though, when we have committee members missing? Now, tonight was odd, we're missing 3. But we're gonna always have a member or 2 missing, I'm guessing.
I don't think we have.
No?
No,
Been
it's
pretty-
gonna happen though.
Yeah, no, certainly,
To a
things
point.
come up.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
I think the show, I don't wanna be glib, but I think the show must go on, so to
Yeah.
speak. Certainly, it's a
Absolutely.
little unusual that we have this many, missing at the same time, but I think there needs to be a recognition on everybody's part that
She has a good grasp on the finance end of this
Right.
too. I mean, that's why I certainly, and
Well,
Paul.
I mean,
Jeff.
I think we need a little direction back. and maybe that's a to-do for you guys while we're charging forward before the next meeting. You guys can come back to us and tell us what you want our timeline to be, and we'll back into it. Because you can't, we could study forever, and sometimes you have communities that just like to meet, and nothing moves forward. But, you know, we have to march forward and make decisions, and it's, sometimes it's hard to do. You know, like tonight, as far as I'm concerned, I'm done with the program. You know, I know that the program is 95% there. We'll tweak it, every little space once it gets into a two-dimensional form. But right, wrong, or indifferent, this committee has basically not been objectifying, I guess is the word, to the building program. And this is the second go at it. The first go at it, we got minimal comments, and most of the comments were to add. We added to it. And as far as I'm concerned, the program's pretty much done.
I guess it's done, but then ultimately, I think one of the things that will perhaps cause some reassessment is the cost, right? I mean, at this point in time, we're talking, 18,000 square feet. If it turns out that an 18,000 square foot building is gonna cost much more than we had anticipated, there may have to be some changes.
A lot of factors go into the cost of a building. Site, utilities, type of construction, size, 1 or 2 stories. So they all tie together.
Right, I guess that kind of drives home the point I was trying to make, is that we're trying to make sure, I think everybody collectively here is trying to do what's best for the future of the senior center. Is what's best to rush through this so we can meet a deadline that may be unreasonable? And I'm just throwing that out there because we do need to discuss, is it unreasonable to think that we can finish this work and do it right for the residents of this town?
I think we did today say that it was unreasonable to try and have a November town meeting.
No, I'm talking
because
about
that was
February.
what the RFPs that we queued up had us finishing, Greg. It was finishing for like a November town meeting. And I think it was the same methodology too, thinking that MSBA would be done with and have us queued up in November, but even they move their target. But if it doesn't meet February, does that mean annual, or does that mean a special in September? So, I mean, we need that feedback too. We're not gonna rush, we're not gonna ever make a rush decision. And I don't think we have yet made any rush decisions, I really don't. Because we still have 4 sites on the table. We still have a program that we all know we're gonna tweak, especially the outdoor spaces. But we've made a lot of progress.
I agree.
And I don't think it's rushed, but I think you're right, it could be perceived as rushed.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've rushed to this point.
Yeah.
But I worry about, are we gonna be forced into a situation where we have to rush to meet?
I definitely wanna have time to sit up there and give confidence to the community with the designer, and the building committee and the OPM to answering questions of the community, because they're gonna come at us. And, we get to town meeting, I want there to be no questions. I want the town meeting.
We want an informed community.
We want an informed, and an informed town meeting always makes the right decision.
So I guess that leads into, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Terry.
Leads into the next question as to, with your past experience with communities, what would be the best way to reach the community, as in either going to, say, coming to a commissioners meeting, or coming to meet at the senior center, or doing a PR, social media type thing? What's the best avenue to educate the entire community on this project?
It really varies. I mean, we've done Facebook, we've done signups where people can sign up and get newsletters. We can start doing newsletters now with updates. We certainly are going to do them as we go along. It's just hard to explain everything that we did tonight in a 30-second soundbite. It's hard to do. But I, you know, we definitely have to do print media, we definitely have to do television media, and we definitely have to have, you know, a meeting every 3 months with the Board of Selectmen, which is the, you know.
We also have a town website that
Yeah.
has these
Yep.
committees
Has a
on
link.
here,
But
and you can update that and link it to different
Right.
And
things, so.
I mean, we have a Facebook, I also have a show, and I mean,
Yeah,
there's different
but I-
things, but I just don't know what,
I'm not concerned that we're not gonna reach the senior population. I think they're gonna find a way to, know what's going on via the center and
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm.
It's the rest of the town that's gonna be asked to step to the plate, that we need to educate and explain
Yes.
to them what the need is, what the solution is, how we got to the solution, and why it's a cost-efficient way to go. And each one of those is important to one segment of the population. Some people, all they care about is cost. Some people wanna make sure that you looked at everything. And some people wanna make sure the need actually exists, and it's not somebody's little wish list. And I think, you know, I think you've started down that path with the master plan. You've identified all the problems in the town, and we're starting to knock off those problems, and this is one of the steps on the master plan. But they need to be educated to that. I don't know how much education you did on the master plan.
But I just have a follow-up question after you.
I'm just going to say that, you know, I think the school project kind of threw a wrench in this whole thing because there has been a lot of talk out there about the town proceeding with the town hall and the senior center. We all know that. We voted on it at town meeting. And now this is coming up. And you're talking about 3 very large money items, okay, that are gonna affect people. I think maybe SBAB, okay, so they participate in granting money for whatever that's going to be. But something like this, people may ask, and your board's gonna ask, well, Mr. Town Manager, where is all this money gonna come from? Are we gonna use any of our reserve funds? Is it gonna be all borrowing? Those are the kinds of things that I think the public wants to know, and we wanna know. I could go out and tout how beautiful this facility is gonna be, and a senior that owns a home and is struggling right now is gonna say, well, how much is that gonna raise my tax rate? And Jeff is going to have to pull out the financial pages and do a lot. So I think that the February deadline may not be the one, but then again, I could be wrong, but I would agree with you, Dan. I think we have to give you some direction. And I think you're absolutely right about how we want these things to follow along. And if we have to step up the meeting, so be it, but.
I do wanna just say one thing. I mean, you just mentioned that the schools threw a wrench. The schools threw you an opportunity. You're blessed to have gotten invited to the core program at MSBA. When I tell you, there's 351 communities, they've probably accepted 8 this year, you are blessed. And it might be out of sequence, but in the long term for the town of Wilmington, you're blessed that you got into the core program. It's really hard to do, especially
In the
when
first
you've
year.
had one, you know, within a decade. So, I mean, you're very, very, very blessed, and you should as a town be happy about that.
One last question, if I
it's an
may.
education.
It's just that, for when we leave here, and just like I know you all do, we get questions from folks, or what's gonna happen, how long, so let's play out just really quickly. If we went to February, say we went to that town meeting, it was approved for funding for the architectural design study, then it would be a following year. It would be at least a year. How long would that take?
I think this next meeting would be for
Full funding.
Full funding, and
Yeah.
then, any idea in terms of how long the construction would take?
Well, construction for an 18,000 square foot senior center will take 12 months. The design, upon approval after town meeting, we're probably looking at 9 months.
So
So
9
you're
months,
looking 9
12 months.
9 plus 12, probably 21 months till you open the doors.
Okay, so we're
Give or
talking
take a month.
2024.
Yeah.
Town meeting.
Okay,
Late 23, early 24.
okay. Thank you.
Wait a minute, he said a really good thing. That's if it goes on February.
That's in February.
Right.
Yeah, if it doesn't, even if it went to April,
If it went to
Not much
April, it would be, you know,
Still
24.
2024.
yeah.
So I guess just going back to the question that you raised early on in terms of these meetings, you know, one of the issues, quite frankly, is if we're gonna be meeting every 2 weeks, every other week, for this, and then the prospect of, you know, there's a few of us around the table here that'll also be meeting at least monthly, perhaps more, on the town hall school admin project, not to mention
MSBA.
the other MSBA and other meetings. I mean, there's only so many days in a week.
Well, which is, again, I think we need direction. MSBA, the MSBA portion of your appropriation, once you've done the appropriation, you're not really starting your building committee meetings in earnest and for another 2 months after that, so those building committee meetings shouldn't really slow us down. You'll have planning meetings prior to your vote.
Yeah. I think his point is well taken, though. A lot of the people at this table are gonna be at multiple of those committees,
I'm
so,
sure.
so that's where we could end up with a situation like tonight, where we're missing people, and then that's a challenge.
I just need direction.
I hear you.
You give me
Well, so-
direction, I'll get you there.
So do we set a meeting date?
We can't.
Well, I think we said we're not gonna set a date until,
I mean, we have the 4 here, but then we have to reach out to everybody else.
well, we really need the next meeting to be a joint meeting. So we need to have the school admin meeting in between, and then have a joint meeting, because the site question has to be answered first.
So September-ish.
Well, I think we shoot for August.
Yeah, we're shooting for
Later
August.
August.
Yeah, for the town school admin, and then whether we can do the joint meeting the very end of August or 1st of September is what we should pursue.
Is it August 10th that we're trying to get?
So August 10th was gonna be the town.
Right.
Have you heard back?
Everybody seems so far to be, I was just waiting for our paperwork, so we are
Yeah,
good
we're-
with that.
You'll have that
The
Thursday.
Town
agreement
hall?
is-
Yeah, town hall,
Thursday.
That's a Tuesday,
Tuesday, yep.
and the next senior meeting is not gonna be set yet,
Well,
because that's gonna be a combined one.
There'll be a
Correct.
combined meeting, which potentially, I don't know whether we can fit it in at the end of August in that last week, or.
Trying to make it the 24th or the 30th,
It'll depend on how far we've gotten with the other designer too.
yeah.
But I think they're in a very similar situation right now where we are, you know, dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. But that other committee, you know, needs to digest, just like we have, all the information.
Right, so we have to have our first meeting with them, so that'll be the 10th.
I mean, we could target, the 24th
24th,
or 20, I don't know what,
we can do that tentative.
yeah. August 24th, that's a joint meeting. See what people's availability is. I mean, one of the things I think we need to try to get from folks is just, you know, on the committees here, is some confirmation as to whether they are gonna be able to make the meetings, you know, I mean, that's, obviously, we have to have the folks here to.
Well, I think once we get into a regular schedule on this, it'll flow
Yeah.
easier. Tuesday nights seem to work for most, so.
Till there's a snowstorm,
Yeah.
hurricane.
24, is that by-law meetings, we have to go to one of those?
So is there anything that we can do on the sidelines, as in sharing information with you as to helping finalize any program stuff as in the senior center piece, or?
The feedback that you've given
I think
today
you got enough
has
to
been
do.
Okay.
fantastic.
Okay.
We can go to town at this point. We could definitely move faster than it sounds like you guys can move, and that's okay, because we can be responsive to you. If we come up with some more roadblocks, we'll let you know. And even if that's before the next meeting, we'll go through the appropriate channels.
I'm also quite certain that when you get the adjacencies done and you start physically laying out the building, that it'll fit on all three of the viable sites. It's going to be the outdoor space that's gonna be challenging for all these sites. So we'll keep working.
Yeah, and certainly one of the things that we need to do internally here, quickly is, decide for which town meeting is gonna be, whether it's the special in February or
The annual.
the annual in, May 1st, I think it is this year.
April 30th,
I actually think it would be,
just a guess.
I think it would be a good idea to have that decision for both projects. I mean, do you wanna put town hall admin off to the fall?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we need to have that decision, or do you wanna try and do them both in the same meeting? I don't know.
That group will certainly discuss that, I mean, right?
Yeah, it certainly, one of the risks of putting two projects of that scale on at the same town meeting is that it becomes overload of sorts, you know. I mean, I suppose there's a couple of perspectives. One is the prospect that, well, I don't know, would people necessarily want to pursue both at the same town meeting, or would they just think that that's just too much to be spending at one town meeting? I mean, it's largely going to be borrowing. There will be some use of free cash, I would anticipate, but you know, this majority of it's going to be borrowing. Right.
We can't answer those questions.
No, that's right.
We
So-
can't.
We don't even know what the number is yet.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a big part of it.
Yeah.
It's a big, big part of it.
We did do it in '99 though, right? Or was it '99 or 2000 that we did both two projects, fire station and the middle school?
That's true.
Those were
Right.
approved at one same town meeting.
If we demonstrate the need, and we educate the public, it passes.
Yeah, and there was also a strategy in that too, because,
I think that's good, we're trying to flush all this stuff out.
okay. That's good. So we're not gonna
Right.
set it, just to be clear, we're not gonna set it, a next meeting for us, the next meeting is just the other
Right, for
committee
them.
meeting. Okay.
And then I'll reach out to the rest of the committee
Great.
members. Okay, next item on the agenda, public comment.
Anybody?
I think you guys have,
Mr. Chairman.
sure.
George Allen, Stonehenge Drive. So, based on what I've heard here tonight regarding the program needs, seems like the architects now have a good idea of what the programmatic needs are. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, is there any reason that the architects cannot do at least a preliminary schematic floor plan? It would be nice for the committee, I think, and others, and the public, to see what is an 18,000 square foot senior center, let's assume a single level, going to look like. So we can start, as this gentleman up front said, we've got all the pieces, let's take a first cut at putting the puzzle together. Let's see how all these
Yeah, I
spaces
think
look.
they have enough
And what does it
information to
look
do
like on a single level floor plan? I think that would be something that the committee could look at, how the spaces fit. We got some relative ideas, but let's start putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
I think you'll see that the designers will come back with plans that relate to the program with adjacencies that look like a building but not a building. Enough for you to get the feel of that, but not one, but probably a few, because they're gonna probably wanna know whether it's a T-based or an L-based or a square-based. There's different ways that, in their minds, I can see Marco's conculating all night long here. So, I do think that, you're right, and I think that's what you'll see at the next meeting, based on having done 3 of these with Marco, so.
Okay.
And then concurrent with that, I assume you're gonna continue along with Mark, I think is the name, the other engineer with S&L, is that his name, Mark? He's gonna continue on with doing the site evaluations, is that correct? Correct. So we'll have more definitive information at the next meeting? Yes. Okay.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Have a second?
Hold it,
Hold it?
Diane.
Yes.
Second?
Second.
Greg?
Greg?
I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
No roll calls, it's so wonderful.